I really like his style of painting digitally, and I wanted him to tell us more about his experience, how he got to become a 3D artist, and so yeah, so this is his interview today, talk and uh, draw and talk, interview. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And so Stan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so yeah, Stan, introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Stan Moua. I'm from Michigan, and I'm a 3D artist. I work for this big company that does 3D for cars all day. Uh, so we do 3D cars. We make them pretty, and we send it off to the client. They put it up to the website. You buy a car, you see our pictures everywhere.
Right. So your job is to make the car look good so they can sell it, huh?
Exactly.
Very nice. So Stan, so tell us how they all started, like how did you get started and all that, like from the very beginning, like what age did you start drawing? When did you start getting interested in going into 3D art, and so on.
All right. So the beginning. Can you hear me good?
Yes, I hear you.
The beginning started when, of course, I was young. I was in France. We all like anime.
Right.
I was into Dragon Ball Z, and I used to trace the posters a lot. I had all the posters. You used to trace them, and
Mhm.
then you sell your pictures to all your friends.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, who knew that tracing pictures would make you better? And I got better, and I got better, and then it became a thing where I was like, hey, I enjoy doing it.
Right. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to ask you, Stan, what are you gonna draw for us while we are live
Okay,
tonight?
I'm gonna draw a chick,
All right.
a
All
beautiful
right.
girl on the dock with
Okay.
water and everything. Hopefully it turns out good because we're live.
Yeah, this is the moment right here.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, keep going with your story. So and then
What was I saying?
so you were drawing.
Yeah. So
You
I
started tracing.
yeah. So I
Keep right.
exactly. So I traced a lot when I was young, and then it started with Dragon Ball Z.
Hmm.
So after that, I kept doing it. I did it through high school. It wasn't a big deal to me though. At high school, I didn't really care for it.
Hmm.
So then it got serious when I went to France. And I went back to France. Met a whole bunch of artists. They were really good and they were like professionals. And they introduced me to 3D and they were like, "Yo, man, this is the new thing."
Okay, really quick before you
Yeah,
keep going. So you move from France to the U.S. at what age?
from France to the U.S. I was 9. I was
You were
young.
9,
Yeah.
and then you went back to France. How old were you when you went back to France?
I was 18.
18. Okay, and
Yes,
then
yes, I was very old.
okay. All right, now go ahead and keep going. So you met artists over there.
Yeah, I
You
met
met
some
some artists.
French artists over there, and they introduced me to the art world, the
Hmm.
professional stuff, where it's like, this is what we do, 3D, and they had some amazing work, and I was like, holy cow, dude, you have to teach me what the heck is this? And they were like, 3D Studio Max. I'm like, oh, that's an easy name.
Oh,
And so that it started from there. I mean, I really like the drawing and stuff, but their level was like, holy cow, dude. My level was like nothing. Yeah.
right.
Like, if you ever go to my DeviantArt, the first couple images,
Hmm.
that was the level I was back in France,
Hmm.
and I was like, yo, that was nothing compared to those guys, and they were professionals.
Right.
And so when I came back to the U.S., I was like, dude, I gotta learn this 3D stuff. I'm gonna pursue it.
Hmm.
And so I went to go look for a school that taught it.
Hmm.
I almost went to those big schools. It's called like arts. What the heck is that called? Art. What the heck is that called? Arts.
Art center.
No, Art Institute.
Uh,
Art
oh, I was
Institute.
gonna
Yeah.
say. Okay. Art
And
Institute. Oh, the
yeah,
Art Institute. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I almost went to those things. I hear they're okay. But no one wanted to co-sign it, so I was like, fine,
Mhm.
I'll just relax.
I'm guessing that's your wife running
Yeah,
us.
I didn't tell her about this.
Oh, well, welcome to the stream. Okay, that's great. That's great. That's great. She can be in the interview too.
Okay,
I'm not doing anything.
she's laughing at me. I had to mute the mic for a second.
It's all good.
What was I saying?
So you are going to the art institute,
Oh no, no, I wanted to go to Art Institute and stuff, those big
right?
colleges, but no one wanted to co-sign it. So
Hmm.
I was like, that's fine. I'll just go to the community college. So I went to
Okay.
the community college, and you know what? I was lucky because they were doing 3D, and I was like, wait, what the hell? All right,
Oh, okay.
that's cool. So what I did is I was like, let me give it a shot, because this is community college.
Hmm.
How good can it get? Whatever, dude.
Hmm.
I went, dude. I learned so much stuff, and that's how it started my career.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, man, you got to be the best of the best,
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah. So tell us about like about that. Like being the best of the best at school. What kind of challenge do you have to go through?
Of course, the thing is, you got to be good at art. The
Right.
basic of all basic. You got to be good at figures. You got to be good at understanding colors and
Hmm.
understanding motion, understanding all that stuff.
Hmm.
So, that I mean, of course, I had to learn that too. I didn't know it at all. And then
Right.
when I went through it, they taught me all these things. Taking what's it called? Those classes. Storyboarding class, so they'll teach you
Oh
how to
yes. Hmm.
animation,
Right.
and then yeah. So you learn all your basic. At the end, like all that stuff gets put together.
Hmm.
Because of course, 3D animation. No, the field I went to is called 3D animation. It was all dealing with 3D animation and movement, all that stuff.
Hmm.
So, but then really, it's like, well, I kind of wanted to be an artist, or like a
Hmm.
2D artist, because I was
Right.
passionate about it. But I was like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And I went and I did my thing.
Nice. And what kind of how was it like did everyone in your class pass, or
Oh
how
no,
difficult was it, like how did they grade you, how did you basically how good were the other student, how stressful was it,
yeah,
anything that you can, some insight that you can give us about going to school as a as a 3D animator that maybe your viewers might want to know.
yeah. So of course it was a community college. For the people that's out of the country, community college is just the small colleges uh,
Hmm.
by the government.
Right.
And because it's community college, it's cheap, so you don't get all the best artists that goes there. So you get a whole bunch of kids that just
Oh,
like,
I
hey,
see.
I want to play games. I want to make
Hmm.
games. I
Right.
want to draw comic book. I love comic book. I love DC. Da da da. So they all go
Hmm.
there and they all think that, hey, my mom tells me I'm good. So you see a whole bunch of them out there like that. I mean,
Right.
of course, I was like that too. But then yeah, so you get a whole bunch of those guys, and what happens is you if you're good, shoot, you'll kill all those kids.
Right.
But if you're decent, you better stock up on your skills and beat all those
Hmm.
kids too. Because the bad thing about it is that because there's so many kids that's I'm not gonna say they suck, but
Hmm.
because there's so many kids that's low level over there,
Hmm.
um, it's easy to boost up your ego
I see.
if
I
you're
see.
if you're okay, if you're decent. But
Okay.
the bad thing about that, of course, is the fact that when you go in the real world, oh,
Hmm.
it's rough. Like, yo,
Right.
there's another school over there that's like 10 times better than you. You have
Hmm.
nothing compared to them.
Wow.
And so that was my realization when I came out of
Hmm.
college. It's like, yo, that school over there is killing me,
Hmm.
and I need to like get better. So
Hmm.
yeah, so
So you
go ahead.
No, so I was gonna say, so you got better on your own while still going to that community college.
Yeah. So the thing about school too, I don't know if you, well, a lot of people might know that went to school is the fact is that they
Mm-hmm.
only teach you the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I do today
Mm-hmm.
is all me. I'm okay. I'm giving myself too much credit, but like, yeah, it's kind of all me. Like, I had to
Right,
do the
right.
extra step to
You have to
learn.
really dig into learn into extra stuff.
Yeah, it's like the teachers, the classes, they'll teach you the fundamentals, the basics,
Mm-hmm.
and skills and stuff. It's all you. It's like you take all those stuff to teach you,
Mm-hmm.
and then what can you do with it?
Right,
It's kind of like I'll teach you how to cook, and
right,
you make the recipe that tastes good. I don't know.
right.
I don't know
No,
how
I
to.
see what you mean. So basically, in the end, is it's still all up to you. Basically, like they're just teaching you how to use the software or basic stuff. But in the end, is it's what you make of it. Basically, that's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you mean, and that makes sense because you did mention that a lot of the student that went to the school you went to, uh, they all went in with the same dream, right? Big dream. They wanted to do video game, art concept and stuff like that. They wanted to be in comics, uh, and and you mentioned also that you had to work. It was easier for you to ranked up as far as one of the better artists because a lot of them didn't took it as like a small they looked at that school like a as a small I guess not serious enough. That's what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
right?
It's not. It
So they didn't they
wasn't. It
didn't, they
wasn't
didn't
strict.
level up the way they should have before they get into the real world, right?
Exactly.
So wow, so that's very interesting because I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers are they they don't know about that. They just they probably might make the same mistake as all the students that you mentioned. Because even for me, when I think about it, like it's hard nowadays to just find about the field that you want to go into. Like exactly what they teach you. And what you're gonna end up doing. Later on, because a lot of people they end up picking a field that that's just not what they thought was going to be. When they're
Mm-hmm.
done with when they graduate. So wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty sad sometimes too because you'll see some students they're really passionate but they just don't get it, And I'm
Hmm.
not saying that I was the best, but it's sad that they go through all that, they graduate, parents is all proud, but
Hmm.
they can't find a job, and
Right.
it's sad. Like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, man, you wasted all this time. Your mom and dad had so much hopes in you,
Right.
and the industry is like, no, you're not good enough.
Hmm. Wow.
But then that's the real world. It's
The
like the real
wow.
world's like that. They're gonna punch you like that one Rocky
Hmm.
motivation show, right? It's like they're gonna punch you, but it's uh, how's the code again? Uh, is how
Right.
you get back up or whatever.
You're right. 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 And that you're talking about that
That
Rocky Balboa line.
yeah, that quote you
Yeah.
ever seen in that movie?
Yes.
Cause
Yes. Very nice.
yeah, like I remember like the first year I graduated.
Yeah.
Like I literally thought I had it. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna find a job. I'm literally gonna
Hmm.
find a job, dude. I'm like the best in class. My ego was up, blah blah.
Wow.
My wife was like, Stan, you're good. Yeah, uh huh.
Right.
I'm like, oh, cool, cool. And then, my the thing too is like my family. Don't trust your family members' opinion, because
Yeah.
my mom be like, yeah, oh yeah, my son is the greatest. He's
Right.
blah blah blah. And then you go, and then the real world is like, no,
Right.
you're not good enough.
It's not the
Or
same.
yeah, the you get denied, you would get rejected, you get, oh my
Wow.
gosh, dude, it kicks your freaking
Your ego, right? Your pride, right?
everything. Everything starts
Oh
going down,
man.
dude. I was depressed.
Damn.
No, not depressed, but just very stressed. Just the fact, like, I didn't get it. I'm like, what the hell is it?
Right.
What is it that I don't have?
Hmm.
But yeah, so
And
that,
would you say that it was mainly because of because you talk about your family member like giving you compliment. You think it was you were too you got overconfident before because of all these compliment. Is that why you went in with too much confidence, or
yeah.
was it because of
Um,
your skill, your art skills that you thought was really out there?
oh yeah, so yeah, both were actually correct.
Okay.
So first thing was I was, yeah, too confident.
Hmm.
I did not know what the hell I was competing against, or
Hmm.
the real world, what the heck the quality they were. about. I did not understand that. And the secondly is what was the second one?
The the compliments from your family, the support. Like
Yeah,
they really basically they they compliment you so much that you really believe in yourself even more, and then you know.
yeah,
But
and
it's family. It's family. They will
yeah, it's
always
like
support you.
yeah, everyone wants to support you. Everyone wants you to do good, but no, this is not the doctor. This is not a lawyer. This is not engineer. This is all based on skills. You can graduate with a master's, and if you suck, you still
Hmm.
you can get a master's. You're still gonna suck,
Wow.
and it hurts, because that's reality. And
Yeah. So how did you manage to get your job then with all these difficulties?
so I did two things. I was at the good thing about doing what I did is the fact that I brought my ego out. It took it out of my system
Okay.
because no, it's not healthy having an ego.
Right.
And sometimes I still have it, but that's not the point.
Right. Right.
uh, uh, what the heck was I? Oh, it's so what I did is I did two things. I had my whole demo reel because animation class you have a demo reel, right? A demo reel which is it shows off all your stuff.
Hmm.
I had to re-scratch everything and just like what, this is not good enough. I have to start
Hmm.
from scratch. I have to start get some new ones, and I do have to realize that what's good and what's bad. I can't just settle with whatever I have, because the thing was like, oh, this project is done. Okay, well I did it in class, so I'm just gonna use it in my reel.
Okay.
And then I have to realize after a while, I was like, this is not good enough. I can't use this.
Hmm.
So I had to re-scratch everything and start from scratch. And because I graduated college already, I had no teachers to tell me like, hey, yeah, do this, do that, blah blah. So what happened was instead of looking at the tutorials, I had to look at reference.
Okay.
Reference is the best thing that can happen to you because reference is what the professionals are doing, and they publish the work online.
I see.
And so if you're gonna go to the professional world, you better mimic those images you see online.
Right.
And because I'm in the car industry, Detroit, I had to mimic. The stuff I was doing is cars.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you can see my screen here,
Yes, I see. Yep.
but these are, you know, they call the horizon line. Always have like after a while like, oh, there's a horizon line here all the time.
Hmm.
Every car, horizon line, horizon line. There's a horizon line everywhere.
I see. Yeah. Makes it
Horizon,
shiny. It gives
yeah,
it that
yeah.
right.
That one's ugly. But yeah, so after a while, I'm like, oh, okay, add a horizon line. For some reason, my school never taught me that a horizon
Interesting.
line, and so I'm like, okay, so now I gotta go and look at reference, see
Hmm.
what they have. Like, okay, this is a picture they published online. They must have went through art director and
Hmm.
multiple artists to before they publish it. So this has to be coming from an artist. So for me to get to the industry, I have to mimic this.
I see. I see.
And so actually, I do have my first one I try to mimic.
Oh, let's take a look at it.
Yeah, it's funny. What?
Then you use that first one for your job. Was it on your
Um,
demo?
it was. I think it's still in there because I never updated my demo after I got a job. I
I
got
see.
what the heck is it? At? Okay, well, hold on. Let me just show you my demo reel then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Vimeo. Oh no, you know what? Let's just check to my website. Stan Moua. It's so old. Like I don't know why it's still even up there. So this is my website. It's stanmoua.com.
Very nice.
This is okay. So it's right here.
Wow, check that out.
The hell? Oh,
Oh, very nice. Nice.
see this Mustang right here?
Yes.
This is the first one I did.
Wow.
And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
dude, I need to mimic these. So I'm like, this is the
Wow.
first one I did, and bam, the whole thing
Wow.
started from this.
Right on point, man.
Yeah. So
Wow.
because whatever the teacher at school was the software, how to use it, they didn't
Hmm.
teach you the art skills. You know, they didn't teach you the what looks good, what does not look good.
Right.
And so
That's a.
yeah, so that's what they need from you in the art studio. They don't care how much all the softwares, you know, like right here, all the softwares. No one
Mhm,
cares.
mhm,
It's like saying, hey, do you know how to use a pencil and a pen? Yeah, I do.
mhm,
Do you know what to do with it? I know how it works,
hmm,
but can you draw me something with the pen and pencil?
mhm.
No, then you're useless. You know what I mean? Same
Wow.
concept.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
Just thinking about like you go to school to learn something, but when you get to the real world, like you said, it's like it's a different game change, right? It's like a whole different world, like the way they look at your art, how they're gonna hire you, and just like you mentioned the software too. So they don't care about any software that you use. Basically, like you could be just using Photoshop or something not even as famous as Photoshop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you can as long as you can get the job done, they'll hire you because of your skill level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they don't care what software you use. As long as you know what to look for. Like yo,
Mm,
when I'm lighting this car, I'm
mm,
looking for this nice, beautiful line, and see this little warm, and they
mm.
call it warm and cool. You know, it's slightly there. It gives that image beauty. And like, oh, this
Wow.
guy knows, he understands lighting. You know. So
Wow.
if you look in the beginning of see this one, this is
Mm.
I didn't really use a reference here. I just did some stupid. Well, for me, it's stupid. Like the light, everything is all over the place. I don't like
I
it.
see.
This is bad light. This is what's called bad lighting.
Mm.
It's it's ugly.
I see. I see what you mean. I can tell. Yes.
Yeah. And then
I see.
Return is what it does, what it is, what it
it's
isn't.
loud. Huh? Okay, there you
But I
go.
bet instead of getting on the
Okay,
internet.
so and this one right here is actually the. So okay, so what happened was I went in for internship.
Uh-huh.
I used this car here as a demo,
Uh-huh.
and I think this one, those three. And then well I was so desperate. I went to this small mom and pop shop.
Mhm.
I was like, yo, give me an internship. I don't care. I'll work
Right.
for free. I don't care. You know, I'll work
Right.
for free 2 days a week. You know, if that's cool with
Mhm.
you. They were like, hey, yeah, why not? Come over. I'm like, all right, that was easy. um,
Wow.
so they were like, yeah, just come here, sit here, whatever, no big deal. If we have real work, you can do some real work. We'll pay you. I'm like, okay.
Good.
And so I learned. Well, not just I learned, but they had like very powerful computers. They had like all the assets, like this whole truck here. I would never have that unless a company would give it to me. I
Uh-huh.
mean, you could download it, but you have to pay for the good stuff.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so they had all the assets, all the lighting, beautiful backplate, you know, the backgrounds. So I'm like, hey man, they have everything. Let me just give it a shot. So I did this one at the internship, and that landed me a real job. Because this
Very
one, they
nice.
saw this and they were like, oh, he gets it. He understands lighting. Like
Nice.
again with the horizon line, you know, it's there, and you know,
Very nice.
and you know, this is my. Hold on, let's just watch.
But I bet
Yeah,
instead of
yeah,
getting
yeah.
on the
Play
internet
it.
and checking a new hit me kid. Strut walking, a little bit of humble, a little bit of cautious.
This is Bluetooth when Bluetooth was popular. Fishing lore because I like fishing. This is very simple. This is an animation I did at the internship.
Hmm.
I modeled the hawk. And I think this is something I did in college.
Wow.
This is so bad though. It's like the ugliest. This is the logo I designed just to make myself profitable.
Hmm.
To try to look for a job.
Very nice. Wow.
Yeah. So as you can see, I had to redo my whole entire um, demo reel.
Right. But right now you don't need to. You got your job. You're good. It's not like
Yeah.
right. This is very interesting. All this work to
Just
get
to
a
land.
job. This is
Yeah.
interesting. Wow.
Uh, You know, I found my old one.
Hmm.
Let's check it out.
Oh, yeah, let's take a look.
Let's check it out. Hold up. It's so funny. Hold up.
This is exclusive, guys.
Yeah, this
You
is
guys
here
see it
only.
first.
I don't know where it went. Oh, it's right here. So it's okay. You can make fun of me. Like,
I don't even. I can't even make fun of you. I can't even do any of the things you do.
yeah. So you can see, like, I don't know if you can see the colors are fading right
Right.
there. It's
Hmm.
no, that's a no good. Like, don't ever do that.
Okay.
Like
Take notes, guys. Take notes, guys.
remember I told you gradient, like don't use gradient. Well, I used to use
Mhm.
gradient, and now I stopped. You know.
Okay. So don't use gradient.
Yeah. It's like ew. Like, this is a cool effect, but then they teach you that online.
Mhm.
So I had the same car. I used it
Oh yeah,
again.
it is. Hmm.
I tried to do different lighting. Same. Okay, this car I did it way back too.
Hmm.
Uh,
But
so,
it changed. Yeah, it changed.
yeah. So this is a Japanese alley we did back in college.
Oh.
But as you can see, it looks very fake.
Mhm.
This is a project I did in college too, animation class.
Mhm.
Same with this one. Another. See, remember the dragon?
Yeah, it's the same dragon. Wow.
Same dragon, but this one here is more detailed.
Yeah, it wasn't completely polished yet.
Yeah, so it's more detailed, colors more correct. This one is just basic, basic yellow.
Right.
Wow, wow. See, as you can see, it does this turn again, and this one,
Right.
it's,
I see. I see.
and
So you did fix that. Yep.
yeah, so it's two different demo reel because the other one was more polished.
Mhm.
This one here is it's more like you can see the college stuff.
I see.
It's like this is, you know what this is? Do you know what this is?
No.
Remember the movie
The
Janemba from Dragon Ball Z?
Oh, Janemba. Yes.
Yeah, I got this
the fusion movie.
I got this concept from this, and I was like, hey, my teacher
That's really
loved
cool.
it.
I like that.
My teacher was like, oh, that's cool. What is that in the background? Like, I don't know, just bubbles and stuff. Oh, you should really focus on it and make it something. I'm like, all right. So I made this, like
That's amazing.
green screen, some stupid stuff.
Oh, dude, I love it. That's amazing.
So as you can see, this is my old one, 2012, the year I graduated,
Wow.
and then I had to amp it up.
Hmm.
More.
Yeah, you can definitely see the difference, like how much more detail is on it, how you
Yeah.
polished it.
Yeah.
It's so much better. Wow,
Yeah.
that's insane.
And like you see it, the truck I redid it. I thought I did it better, but today
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, it's ugly. Yeah. So the whole idea is the fact that you had to face up, and like all the time I wasted in college.
Mhm.
It's like sometimes the thing is, we don't when we waste not waste, but when we use a lot of time to make something, we want to show it off. But the
Right.
thing is, after a while, you start falling in love with it. And when you fall in love with it, you never want to throw it away. When you never want to throw it away, you just have
I
oh,
see.
crap. And so the thing is, I had to learn to let go,
Mhm.
stop falling in love with my crap, and just do what what I try to do it like a client was here. And I was like, okay, don't do
I
it
see.
what you like, just do it how they want it. So that's when
Mhm.
that's when these started coming in. Like this look. Like, oh yeah, well online it's like this. Let me just pretend they're my client, and
Mhm.
I just did it, copied it, and then
Very nice.
yeah. So don't fall in love with your stuff. Let it go, and start new stuff. And you have to realize you're not that good. Get better.
Mhm.
Get better. Get better.
Right, you can always improve. And you're right. You're right. I think a lot of artists they get stuck into their own style, and then they call it their style,
Yeah.
because they get stuck in it for so long. But I think a lot of them too, they deny the little mistake that they do, because they like it that way, and they
Yeah.
just leave it at that.
Um,
And that's a great advice right there, yo.
one thing about people and their style. Okay, so this is a little mean, but
Mhm.
it's the truth. Um, back in college, we had a lot of those kids because,
Mhm.
I don't know. The thing about their own style is that it's your style is because you don't know how to do anything else but this. That
Mhm.
does not mean it's your style, you can claim it. Your style is if you learn how to draw like Jim Lee,
Hmm.
and then you learn how to draw like like well, you picked up 3 4 different style.
Right.
You copied 4 different style. Like, all right, um, I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And now you like, I'm gonna choose this.
Hmm.
I'm gonna choose these eyes. I'm gonna choose this mouth. I'm gonna choose these type of hair. And then that becomes your style. But then if you never try different styles, but you're always stuck to that one, that
Hmm.
just means I don't know how to do anything else but this.
Right. That makes sense. It's like a. It goes back to what you're saying about taking a reference. Like we basically take bits and like ideas from other artists or from actual real stuff. That you incorporate into your art, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's this one saying that's like, just do you, do what you
Hmm.
do you, and the fans will come. Like, that's true, yes,
Hmm.
but not when you suck. You know,
Hmm.
if you suck, fans might come, but they
Hmm.
might just be your mom and dad, brother, sister,
Hmm.
cousins. And maybe, I mean, sometimes it works, yes, but then sometimes you have to realize that you have to amp it up,
Right.
and some people
Right.
don't do that, and I've seen that multiple times. There's this one kid back in college. Yeah, like we had a figure class. We drew this naked person in front of us,
Hmm.
and for some reason, every time he drew it, his face looked anime all the time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, she doesn't look like that, or he doesn't
Right.
look like that. Why this looks so anime?
Hmm.
He's like, I don't know. Every time I draw, it looks anime. I'm like, you need to get out of that thing, and
Right.
he never did. But
Oh, wow.
I mean, I guess it's not a bad thing, but you gotta learn to
Right.
let it go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I guess it's not a bad thing depending on what you're trying to break into. But for what you were going for, yeah, you had to get better for your case, right? You had to get better, in as a 3D artist, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's more towards realisms, than animated or cartoonish, right? So it's definitely a different level, and yeah, so you had to improve really fast for you in
yeah.
your case.
And two, my feel was they had standard. People had standard.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the standard they were looking for was not what I had.
Hmm.
So I had to amp it up, and of course that there's a big school next to us too. It's called CCS.
Hmm.
I told you about it before.
Right.
They are the my biggest competitor, and if you don't amp it up, they will get all the job first because there's constantly people are graduating there constantly. So it's like if you don't amp it
Wow.
up, they will pick up the job first. You will
Hmm.
have a hard time, and good luck because
Right. That competition is tough, man. They're trying to get the best of the best every time, huh?
yeah, exactly.
Get them first. Wow, that's really tough. So would you say that because you started tracing, right, as when you were younger,
Yeah.
and how did you come up with your style to go? Oh, I guess because right now your style is realism, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So how did you make that shift? Was it hard for you to go from a cartoonist? Did it take you a long time to go from an animated cartoonish style to a realism?
Um. Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, as in like it was. I mean, it's not easy. It's just that I had to draw more people.
Mhm.
Wait, what was your question again?
So switching from a cartoonish style of art
Yeah.
to realism from what you're doing right now, because it's to me it's like two big different style. Like I always started drawing cartoonish manga style.
Yeah.
And realism to me is still kind of new. I'm trying to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So how was it for you, basically? Like how was
It's
it
like
easy? Did it take a long time?
well, it's not easy. It was kind of hard because
Hmm.
no, I drawing cartoon first.
Hmm.
You condition your mind to like only do this and that, and then when you start doing realism, it's like I have to rethink. I have to recondition my mind. Um, so the thing about it is, yeah, it wasn't easy, But then as soon as you get into it, you start getting it. It's like, oh, I get it.
I
I
see.
understand. It's just the fact that you have to, they call it like discipline your mind.
Hmm. Interesting.
It's like
Okay.
just do it, you know.
Right.
It's kind of like working out, running and stuff. Just do it. Just keep going. I know it hurts. Just keep doing it.
Right. That's true. You just gotta go through it.
Yeah, it's like
Finish it.
yeah,
Right.
conditioning your body because your body knows it hurts, but you know
Mm.
you're gonna bypass it after.
Very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Wow. So, uh, so then, right now, since you work for a company, like how often do you just draw on the side just for yourself? Like when you make your own painting or some digital art, something that you want to do just for yourself, a personal project. How often do you
Um,
draw?
over there or at work, or you talking about
Or
just
just no,
home
like
personal
on your
time?
own, like on your personal time, like on your personal project or something like that. How often do you do that?
Um, at first I wasn't.
Hmm.
Ever since I met you, you were like, "Hey, do it." I'm like, "All right." Yeah, the truth is, and I got kind of lazy because I got a job. I was like, "Oh, cool, I got a
Yeah.
job, man." And then the first year you want to be the best, and then you become okay where no one cares. It's not no
Hmm.
one cares, but it's like, oh, no one is correcting my stuff. That must
Hmm.
mean I'm good, right?
Hmm.
And after that, it's like, oh well, if I'm good, then I'll lay low for a while. I don't want to practice, and
Hmm.
then you get lazier and lazier.
Right.
1 week to a month to a year. I'm like, what the hell?
Mhm. So do you think because of that you kind of stayed at a level that haven't evolved too much,
Yeah,
or
I did.
you did?
Because of course, practice makes perfect,
Hmm.
and so because I lay low, I I didn't practice, and that was a big waste of time.
Hmm. I see. And also I wanted because you're using Photoshop right now.
Yeah.
What is you use? What other software do you use? Like can you
Uh,
tell us about what you use?
I use well for illustration. I use Paint Tool Sai.
Oh, Paint to Side. Okay.
Yeah. Just because it has beautiful brush strokes and I love the way it blends.
Hmm.
I mean, I heard you can do that too in Photoshop, but I don't want to try to figure it out.
Right.
Gotta buy the brushes. You gotta tweak this, tweak that. I don't want to go through all that.
Right. I
Um,
like Photoshop. Yeah.
yeah, and then Photoshop, of course. I wanted to pick up. It's called Corel Painters,
Oh yes, yes. Me too. Actually. Yeah.
and they have. It's even better, but I downed it once, and there's it's so complicated, man. I was like,
Really.
well, no, I'm
Oh.
sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't want to take the time to learn it, basically.
Yeah, it's basically a whole new interface. You got to learn everything, the
Yeah,
position,
yeah,
what's
and
what.
I didn't want to. The thing is, I didn't want to do that.
I totally understand, man. Like I think I was telling you before when I switched from Photoshop to Clip Studio Paint, I felt the
Hmm.
same way. Like I miss Photoshop so bad. Like I got so used to it, I enjoyed it, and now it's like I had to force myself to take the time to learn how to use Clip Studio Paint. And even now, like I always tell you, I barely use like not even 5 to 10% of what it actually can do. Like
Hmm.
I still got so much to learn now, because I only do basic stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a lot of things to learn. So switching from a different software, yeah, I can imagine, man. It's a whole new thing every time.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like what I said earlier. You gotta condition yourself. Like,
right.
I
That's
gotta
true.
force myself to learn this. If I don't, those damn kids will beat me and the other college. They're gonna pick up all the
Right.
jobs.
So yeah, so let's talk about this for a second because you mentioned disciplining yourself. So what kind of discipline did you have to like force yourself to get into? Like how was it mentally and physically? How exhausting was it? To learn, uh, to get better. At the new things you were learning.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah. So the discipline. Well, first of all, is just to start, right? Just to get
Hmm.
on the computer and just start drawing because
Okay.
no. The truth is, for me, I really hate the beginning stage of drawing, like
Uh huh.
the thinking, the concept, the drawing. See that would it look good? I don't know. and that's one thing that makes me not want to start any new project.
Right.
And it's bad. It's actually really bad. And and that's what I mean by conditioning. Like, all right, force yourself, just do it.
Hmm.
Get up and do it. It's kind of like working out. Get up, do it, do your sets.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
plus, yeah. So I just had to start, and I had to get away from the whole anime. 'Cause I used to draw like freaking Fader Free and all that stuff. Every time I would draw, like, for some reason, their hair would look like Goku or Gohan.
Right.
What the hell?
Spiky.
Yeah. And then oh shoot. Um, what the hell? Oh,
Oh, I think it's going on.
my shortcut got deleted.
Oh, oh, you gotta redo everything, huh?
No, no.
Reload it.
Yeah, something happened. It was F1.
I think Stan doesn't want to finish this, guys. I think
Yeah, forget it, man.
it's like he says, it's the beginning stage. He hates doing
Yeah.
it, so you know.
Come on, guys, give me something. Give me something else.
It's all good. Take your time, fix it.
No, the other day, I had to delete my preference.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, and then now my shortcut was gone. I'm like, damn it. Yeah, freaking Pablo taught me how to do it, and I completely forgot. Keyboard shortcut. I'm trying to put it on F1. It was image. Okay, just bear with me real quick.
No worries, no worries. You take your time. It's good. It's a good learning, for people who want to set up their, shortcuts.
Yeah, there you go.
So
There you go.
there we go.
See, this looks incorrect.
Oh right, yeah, the flipping image. But we'll talk about this after. Go ahead and finish talking about the discipline. So what did you have to remind yourself every time? Like you said, like you will do her hair and it looks like Goku's hair. So how would you remind yourself to not do that? What would you do? Would you like re-erase everything? Would you just put like a picture in front of you to remind you not to do that, or something like that?
Yeah. I would start using reference because if I can't, if everything I'm drawing looks like freaking, this,
Right.
um, if it starts looking like, oh, what the hell? Oh,
Something wrong again.
if it starts looking like this every time, I'm like,
Right.
well, there's nothing else I know but that. It's like, well, that means you don't have a library of hair, and that means you never drew other hair than that.
Very true. Yeah.
And then you'd be like, oh, well, how about shorter? I'm like, that's still Dragon Ball Z. Like, oh, my bad. How about a hat? That's Terry Bogard. I'm like, oh, my bad. It's like,
Right.
how about this?
Yeah.
That's Joe Hukashi. Like, no,
Yeah. Yeah. Still all look the same. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because I didn't try to draw any other style, and that's when it's like, oh, that's my style. Like, no, it's just the fact that I never tried any other style.
Right. It's all you know.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So the discipline is that I had to go find a reference and just stick to that reference.
Hmm. To do realism, find a reference and stick to that.
Well, at
Okay.
first, at first it started as in just building my library of drawing other things than just Dragon Ball Z,
Right. Right.
and then it became more and more like, hey, realism is actually cool.
Hmm.
It's actually pretty nice. And then, of course, the website ArtStation,
Right.
ArtStation,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Everyone draws realism, and it's more and more motivating.
It's true.
And it's so badass that I'm like, yeah, this is the way to go, man.
That's the way to go. Yeah. But it's even harder. Competition's even harder on outstation.
Exactly. You thought college and finding a job was hard? Oh man.
Yeah. Because that's like artists like all over the world. Like they're just putting the stuff out there,
Yeah.
and it's just so many good people, man. Like amazing guys.
Exactly. so that's why I'm like, and because I understood that about college and finding a
Hmm.
job, like okay, I'm going after the world now. You know, it's like
That's great. Yeah,
it's like okay, I've learned how to condition my mind, so if I can do it again for the worldly, uh, concept stuff, let's
yeah,
go. You know.
that's amazing. Yeah, and that's the way to go. From your past experience, that's great.
Hmm.
Yeah, and some people won't even think of it like that. From the past experience.
Yeah.
Because it's like you mentioned earlier today. I think they get comfortable into it. So I think that's the whole problem. The fact that they get comfortable. So that's great that you saw it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mentioned earlier about the flipping the picture to see the mistake. You taught me that. Can you tell us and the viewers about it? Like, how does that work and what does that show you?
Okay. So basically, um, the when you draw something, you don't notice anything bad because you're viewing it from your angle. And as soon
Hmm.
as I flip it, like, oh, you
Right.
know what? Do I still have that?
I think because you moved the head, we won't see the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before I'm like, oh, this looks fine. As soon as I flipped it, I was like, that doesn't look right.
Right. And that's crazy how that like that whole thing like it blew my mind when you showed me that. So yeah. So for viewers, if you guys are watching, like it's a great like how would you call it
I don't know, image flip.
like like but it's a great um
Verify to verify your anatomy.
okay, yeah, there we go. That's I guess I didn't know how to put that in word,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yes. And the what happened is this Stan flipped one of my um art, and then I saw like right away like whoa, what is this? Like it doesn't look the same at all. And I was like, and so I learned from that from it teaches you on the angle and the anatomy on how
Mm.
you see like everyone's has got their own perspective, but once you flip that image over, it should be looking the same, right? In both perspective, right?
Right. Yeah, it should look the same. Like right here, right now.
Right.
Like if I actually this one doesn't look right, maybe I'll maybe take it out over there more.
Hmm. Right. And this is great because it makes you see things that are off. So when you go back to the actual perspective you had in mind, you can actually fix it. And this is
Yeah.
that right there that blew my mind. Like I've never learned that.
The thing too is don't be scared of painting while being on the other side, because then when you flip
Hmm.
it, like it should look right. You know.
Wow. Yeah, that is great. That's a great. That's something great to use.
I mean, yeah,
It's amazing. Yeah.
it's a common thing. Like every artist should know. I didn't
Hmm.
know about it myself until like some artists showed me,
Hmm.
and I'm like, crap, it's too late. Let me show you. Well, I showed you guys before, but I showed you before, but my how I flipped one of my images that I did before, and
Right.
I'm like, oh crap, it looks ugly.
Right.
Let me
So,
just copy. Let me just put it right here. Paste it.
oh right, that's right. And then once you flip it, so this angle is good. And then once you flip it, it
Yeah,
looks odd.
this angle is good. That flip it, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with her chin? What's up with her neck? Her neck is so far out there. It looks like a man now.
Right.
The shoulder might be too small. Crap, I'm
Mm.
seeing a lot of bad things.
Right.
And then you go in there and you be like, all right, let me just do the liquefy. Her chin. Move that in there. There you go. It looks
Mm.
better. Maybe the neck. I don't know.
Yep. Yep. It's starting to fix it a bit.
Shoulder. Oh no, the boobs. Oh man, it's one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. So like for our viewers, I hope you guys can see like how much difference you can actually see once you flip a picture like that, and that's amazing. That's
Hello.
yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. Never mind.
Oh, you lost.
No. I think it.
Okay.
But yeah. So flip the image before you go too far,
Mhm.
because if you don't, you end up like what I did here. I'm like, oh crap, it's
That's his old drawing, guys. By the way.
yeah, like 2 months ago. No. Let's see how far back there. 2016. So that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
May 2016. Yeah. And the thing about this is, like I told you, I fell in love with this picture, and
Mhm.
I put way too much time because this is the time I was learn. I wanted to pick up the painting stroke style,
Mhm.
and I fell in love with this one, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then I never flipped it. I'm like, oh, it was too late.
Mhm.
And
I see.
I already published it. Everyone saw it already. People think
Right.
I suck.
Right.
See,
Right.
now it looks correct.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I changed it a little lower, but whatever. But yeah, so
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
flip your images.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's great.
I'm not liking that leg actually, but whatever. No big deal.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about also like earlier you mentioned about the starting process because I know we talked about it on to each other before, but so right now our viewers they're probably wondering why you haven't started painting yet. You're still in the process of laying down where you want to put everything, right? And I
Yeah.
know we discussed that together, and tell us the importance of doing that, like because what we talked about before is it's more important to spend more time making sure everything is set up the way you want it to be and make sure it looks good before you can actually paint it. Tell us about that.
All right. So yeah. So doing this, I haven't colored yet. Of course, you want to get your shape done. Make sure your anatomy is correct. And I'm drawing really rough right now, so you can see a lot of edges and nasty stuff. Um, so it's good to get. It's just basically get your foundation good, you know, and then
Hmm.
and then you can go in and drop them. Like boom, boom, boom. Like okay, they're gonna stack, boom, boom.
Right.
Now we're gonna have like a beautiful pyramid.
I see.
But
Very nice.
if I didn't, I would be like, oh crap, it's. And then you'd be like, oh, those things are super heavy, man. It's like I'm not doing it again. Like, dude, I told
I
you to
see.
set it up. It's like, oh man,
That makes sense.
yeah. You'd be like, uh oh,
And yeah,
now no one's gonna come and visit us in
right.
Egypt.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And you can actually see it. Like right now, a lot of artists they don't do that. They some of them they go straight to the painting.
Yeah.
And some of them actually do really good that way. But it's also very important to very lay out the different layer
Mm-hmm.
first. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
And of course, because I'm doing a top view,
Mhm.
know your anatomy. Because if you don't know
Yeah,
your anatomy, you get stuck with just always the same.
flat figure,
Yeah, and
straight.
then I
Yeah.
used to do this a lot, and then or you just do this.
Hmm.
It's always like the shoulder like this.
Right.
It's one or the other.
Right.
It's never like. And
Something. Right.
of course, if you everyone learns it right, you do the square thing,
Hmm.
and then circle, pivot. I don't know. I just randomly put stuff.
Hmm.
His leg is gonna go like this,
Right.
Vegeta.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so you know your anatomy.
Hmm.
Well, know your anatomy if you're gonna draw characters, of course. If you're
Hmm.
gonna draw cars all
Absolutely.
day, because
That's right.
it's funny. Like I'm not bashing anyone at work, but like I was surprised at work when I was drawing something on my whiteboard,
Hmm.
and they were like, "Oh, Stan, you can draw." I'm like, "The hell are you talking about? You can draw characters?" I'm like, Should you?" I was like, "You should too." What do you
Yeah.
mean I
Yeah.
can draw characters?
Right.
And then from there I found out like a lot of 3D artists don't know drawing.
Human
Yeah,
anatomy.
exactly. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
Because
That's
it's a totally different field.
no. You're right. That's shocking too. Like I'm shocked. Like I would assume, right? Like you know how to draw like cars, you should be able to have a better perspective at least of human anatomy and angle.
or touched upon it in college or
Right,
something.
right.
Nope. I was like,
Wow.
what? So yeah, so I was surprised when people were like, "Oh man, it's amazing." I'm like, shut up. And then you look to find out, oh, you can't draw, huh? Oh, what the
Right.
hell? Am I alone here? Yeah.
That's insane. Wow. That's some great insight right there.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't mean to be cocky. I just mean to just not everyone in the 3D
Right.
world, not everyone knows how to do it.
Right. And that's one thing, like it goes back to what we're saying. Like I think they specialize in that too much that they excluded everything else.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. So to be a complete artist or a better artist, I should say, you just gotta like keep drawing everything basically, not just one thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
of course, 3D you don't really require to learn
Mm,
anatomy either.
mm,
It's just my preference. Well, I started drawing Ball Z, so.
right. And so Stan, let's keep moving on the question.
Oh yeah,
I
go
got
for it.
a few more, and it's almost been an hour. This is insane. Wow, this is great. This is
What?
a lot of great information, and no, I like it. I love it. Hopefully it doesn't affect your. I don't know if you have anything going on,
No, I'm
right now.
gonna go play Call of
Okay,
Duty after this.
that's great. So you guys can find Stan on Call of Duty after this.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's keep moving on. I got a few more questions, and then we leave it at that. I want to keep the interview, just as a certain time. And so I was wondering, like, have you done any convention before? Are you planning on doing anything like that? On the side.
I want to. I want to start.
Hmm.
Um, Based on your experience, it sounded very awesome. I was like, man, this
Yeah.
this is so freaking great.
Right.
So I do want to start. And actually, this year I was literally looking at a whole bunch of convention.
Nice.
I have a whole bunch of images I could probably sell right now.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and yeah, so I do want to start. I haven't. I've been talking about it ever since I was in college because
Mhm.
I went to one and I was like, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever.
Mhm. Hey Stan. So that it doesn't take too long because the painting looks huge. Show us just like the face, how you will work on the face for now, so that people can actually see your
My
your skills.
progress.
Like yeah, you know
Yeah,
what we're going. Sorry, I didn't mean to
no, that's fine.
interrupt you like that. Yeah, I just
Um,
want people to really see, how you use the software, how you shade, how you paint. So yeah. So
yeah, so
anyway, yeah.
one thing I do is I just have my lines. I know people tend to. I used to really rely on my lines, but my lines are just there to give shape.
Hmm.
So I don't. I'm gonna take them off after.
Right.
And yeah, these eyes. Oh, shoot, see that? I didn't. I broke my damn my rule. The rule of getting a good foundation. Yeah,
Then again, that's how you find the mistake, because you were
exactly.
still working. I kind of rushed you, you were still working on all that,
Yeah.
so yeah. And so while you're doing this, is there any advice you want to give to our viewers or young artists that want to break into the animation industry, or 3D artists, what do you have to say for them, like anything
Um,
that can help them?
same thing as what I was saying before. Is
Mhm.
if you have an ego, you better break that off. And I get it.
Right.
I get it. It comes, and it's something you can't even control. It just does. Like especially when you're the best in your family.
Mhm.
Let that go, 'cause that's gonna really break. Especially your learning curve.
Mhm.
It's gets on the way
Mhm.
because you think you're too good. Of course, you stop learning. And then
Right.
secondly, too, is never stop drawing. I mean, yeah, never stop trying.
Okay.
'Cause
Never stop trying.
yeah, I've seen kids stop trying right after college, and
Mhm.
they never advanced up, and they fall
That's too
behind.
bad. Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I can't help you because
Yeah.
after college, after I found a job, people were reaching out to me from college again. They were like, "Hey man, hook me up." I'm like, "All right, let's see your demo reel." And be like, "What the hell is this?" You know, I'm like,
Hey,
I can't help you."
yeah.
Yeah, so always keep trying, always level up, man,
Hmm.
because it's number one. Like I mean,
Right.
no, it's not number one, but as an artist, you can always move up.
Right. Right. So you
Like,
gotta stay updated to
hmm
everything. Yeah.
like I remember Stanley Law.
Hmm.
His style changed, like from 4 years ago or five
Hmm.
years ago to now. His style slowly changed, but it gotten better. You know, it's like it gets better and better.
Right.
It's like, dude, even professional Stanley Law, like, yo,
You're right. So progress throughout the years.
exactly.
That's great. Never give up. All right. That's great. And let's talk about the critics really quick, because you said a lot of people, will give up. Do you think it's about people, like giving harsh critics, or like they were evaluated too hard from the employers?
Oh yeah. I would, yeah. You mean like when they stop or when they?
Yeah, yeah. Like, is that the reason why they stop? Or in like overall?
Yeah. Well, one is they don't know how to advance up, and
Mhm.
because they don't have any relative that knows how to advance up.
Right.
Secondly is of course they're lazy, but that's that's not what we're talking about. Third is like
Hmm.
yeah, the it's too harsh, and sometimes I don't know how to. I don't know I need it to be better. You know,
Right.
it's
Okay.
like
I see.
I feel like I'm at a good spot where I should get a job. I deserve a job.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah.
That's what blocks them. So, what would you like? What kind of advice would you give them for that? Like when for new artists that are, like if somebody review the art or give them some critics, what would you give them like for advice? Like to not take it so harshly, but use it as like getting better.
Take it, man. I mean, I hated it too,
Hmm.
but take it. Like literally, like you can curse them out on your own time, but then
Right.
and then you get back to reality and be like, yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's right. You know.
Right.
And then of course you're the one who's looking for a job, so
Right.
you better take every advice you can.
You're right. You're right. I mean, they're giving you the job if you're good enough, right? So you're right. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So if you
If you,
can't get
you're right.
it, you better realize what the hell it is.
Right. That's a great advice. That's a great advice. And we talked a lot about that now. Let's talk about like your personal goal for you. Like what's your short term goals and what's your long term goal? Like what do you have right now in mind?
So my short term goal, of course, is just to get better and
Hmm.
at what I like the 2D side, like understanding lighting,
Hmm.
understanding shapes, understanding good color concept,
Hmm.
everything, and then from there, uh, long term is becoming a successful artist. I do want to work for like my dream is to work for as a concept artist.
Hmm.
And people would be like, Stan, you're not concept artist quality. Like,
Right.
I get it,
Right.
but that's not now. And let me sharpen my skills and everything first. Um,
That's awesome.
so that yeah, so that's my
Your long term goal in the future.
yeah.
Right. And this is great. I just want to, I don't know if you can see, but I just want to show what you mean by that, because it's very interesting to me, because you mentioned you want to have a better understanding of shapes and colors and all that. And what I did is I just zoomed down on the picture that you did of Tracer, and like to me, it's already like it's great. It's already out there for me. And the fact that you're saying that you want to even get better than that, that right there really shows like how much uh as an artist you need, how you need to like see yourself as always improving. So for our viewers, like I think that's really important. And like to me it's really inspiring. Like I take your concept and of doing that and inspire me. Like I want to do the same thing. And for those of you who don't know, like Stan is actually the reason why I even changed my the way I color, my art, and it's great, and that's the way, that's everything we just talked about, that's I accepted his critic and actually wanted him to tell me honestly, what was wrong, from different artists, and I took that and I incorporated in my most recent art, and and it's looking better. Like I gotta say myself, I like them. I like the way they look better than the first one I did. So all that right here, that's what Stan means, and to me that's amazing. That's something that I love in artists, because some artists you'll talk to them and you know right away that they're not trying to progress, they 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 just want to stay right there,
Yeah.
so this is great, but as an artist, I think like Stan said, you always want to shoot for better. And anyway, that's what I wanted to point out by showing you guys this. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in like I said too, the whole like get better, practice, practice, practice.
Hmm.
That's what I'm doing right now. It's like I need to get better. It's like I need to get better and beat a whole bunch of guys that's like better than me.
Yeah, that's part of building your confidence in a
Yeah,
good way,
it's
not in a
like
bashing way,
I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to. I mean, yeah, it's stubborn as hell, but it's like, dude, I don't have the time. It's like I
Right.
have family, I have kids. I can't be
That's
doing.
true.
I can't be going back to
That's
school. Just
right.
I should, but hell no.
Right. And I also wanted to ask you, like, what kind of freelance work have you done before you got a job? Have you done that? Freelancing?
I have, but very very small.
Okay. Tell us
Um,
about your experience. Yeah.
so back then when Craigslist was a big thing, remember Craigslist? Um,
Right.
I I put out, hey, I'm an illustrator. Reach out to me if you need something. So
Hmm.
some people did, and the thing is, I was charging a little too low,
Okay.
and sometime it took too long, and
Hmm.
I didn't really like. Man, I should have charged more because they're wasting a lot. Not wasting my time, but like they're using a lot of my time.
Right. It wasn't worth your time in the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So let me show you guys some here. Butterfly, dead fish, ink, Kefla, landscape, my drawing there, pepper, painting. It's weird, I can't find any. That's weird. Where the hell did it go? Okay. I think it's on my website.
Yeah. No worries.
No worries about a thing. Illustration, there we go. So, see these here?
Uh-huh.
So you know a vector, right? You know what vector is?
Uh-huh.
Vector art.
Yeah. Vectorizing
So
art, or yeah.
yeah, so they asked me to do this as a vector, and I'm like, that's hard.
Uh-huh.
I did it. So they were able to print it very very big, and
Right.
they had the body, and they had the artist could not do face. So they gave
Uh-huh.
it to me to do the face.
Uh-huh.
That was like when I was still in college, because they were like, hey, you're pretty good at figure, do her
Uh-huh.
face. I mean, it's so tiny you can't even see it. But yeah, it turned out good. And then
Right.
some guy on Craigslist reached out to me. He's like, "Hey man, I have this mascot, the monkey."
Uh-huh.
And at first he was like, "Hey, can you put the monkey as a baby and put the
The hangout guy.
yeah, the
Yeah.
hangout guy on the back
The hangover. Yeah. Yeah.
as an ink?" I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." So I
Nice.
illustrated the monkey as a baby, and then
That's
he's like,
amazing.
"Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool, man. Thank you." And then he's like, "All right, can you do the Doughboys with different Nike shoes?" I'm like,
Mm.
"I could try." And then, dude, the Nike shoes was hard as hell, dude. Oh my
Oh
gosh,
wow.
I it was so freaking hard.
So, uh, how was the amount of time that you spent on it versus the amount that you charge, for it, because you mentioned it wasn't worth the time in the end when you first did freelancing work, right? So
Yeah.
tell us about, yeah.
So it was at first it was a one flat fee was like $40.
$40 for that? Wow.
Yeah, and the thing is, it took so much because the thing is, I never drew Doughboy, so I had
Mm.
to research learn how to draw him before I went and drew him.
Hmm.
And then, tell the truth, I wasn't good at coloring at the time. So as you can see,
Hmm.
like the colors goes to from white to gray.
Hmm.
Today I would not do that. You know, it would go to like a blue or something.
Okay.
But like
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about colors. I mean, even though the scarf came out okay, you know, the shoes was okay.
Right.
So yeah, I spent way too much time.
Hmm.
40. I think this one was 40. Which this one was pretty quick, but this one was the time killer. And I was like, shoot, I should have told them $40 per character, you know, and that was my
Hmm.
fault. I didn't
Yeah.
specify that, so he took advantage of it. I'm like, damn it.
That's true.
But then this one was pretty cool. He was like, hey, can you use my
Hmm.
funky? Put it on the whatever this guy, whatever his name is.
Hmm.
And I was like, sure. And it was kind of very challenging actually. This was one of my first cool art,
Freelance
you
or
know.
wow. Yeah.
So I did these. Those are my stuff here.
Wow.
Uh,
That's amazing.
yeah, so I didn't do much really, because it took a lot of time. And after a while, I was like, let me just go up 60, $100.
Hmm.
And a lot of mom and pop shop was reaching out to me, and
Hmm.
they didn't want to pay that much. They were
Right.
looking for like $40, $20.
Right.
Yeah, so then I after a while I could get it.
Hmm.
People are way too cheap. I don't want to deal with it.
Right. Right.
This lady was trying to lowball me. She was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I accept it. Oh cool."
Hmm.
And then she asked me for some hard stuff, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna charge you like $20 an hour." She's like,
Hmm.
Stan, this thing, I charged my customer $60 to put this design on their shirt, and I'm gonna pay you
Hmm.
$20 an hour. Do you understand? I'm losing money. I'm like, the hell is that? How the hell is that my problem? He's like, you're asking me a, you know,
Hmm.
it's, well, the concept, the fact, the whole thing is that mom and pop shop, they're trying to make money,
Hmm.
but they're charging low too,
Hmm.
and so don't go after them because they're not gonna pay you
Hmm.
nothing.
Right. And it's hard, like I'm glad you mentioned that. Like as a freelancer, because a lot of artists, like you said, it's hard to get a job, so they're freelancing, right? And
Yeah.
it's so hard to just price yourself, price your product, your skills, and
Exactly.
yourself, So yeah, and people like artists, they get into that all the time. Like people trying to, ask them to lower the price. They don't know how much work artists put into it, how much time it takes,
Hmm.
and that right there, that's crazy. Like it's so hard for artists.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, no one like, if you don't deal with agencies or big industry people,
Hmm.
they, which did they understand more of
Hmm.
your stuff, so they'll pay you more. Mom and pop shops, you know, everyone thinks, oh, but you just do this for fun.
Yeah. Yep.
Should I? Can I pay you $20? I'm like, what?
Right. It's all about that, that profit for them. They're trying to make as much profit as they can. So yeah.
Exactly. So there's this quote. Okay, just make him sleep with you for a bit. What was I saying? I forgot.
Talking about yeah, profit.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I heard this one quote was like, "Hey man, I went to school for 4 years for me to draw you
Mhm.
this illustration in 2 seconds."
Right.
And I was
Yes.
like, "Hey, that does make sense." I mean, even
Right.
though it's like, yeah, you got pretty good, you should be charging per hour. So that's like $20, right? It's like,
Hmm.
no, because I save you tons of time, you should be paying me more. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
Um, because yeah, because I sharpen my skills so good
Hmm.
that you want to use me, and you know what,
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Know what you're worth, basically.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah. 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 Be honest with yourself and know what you're worth to price yourself. That's great. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Wow. That was some great advice right here for freelancing.
uh,
And so I'm almost done with all my question. So we're
uh,
just gonna go through them, here. And let's see. So I wanted to know, like, currently, who's your favorite artist? Someone that who's the person that you take a lot of you know, that you take from the most, currently,
um, the truth is, I'm gonna tell you something
Uh
so dumb. You'd be like, what?
huh.
I follow everyone that's on Art Station.
On our station.
Yeah, back then, back in college, I used to follow Jim Lee, Stanley Law, those guys. But
Right.
ever since I got out, and I know there's so many styles and there's so many
Hmm.
things I want to achieve,
Hmm.
I don't follow just one artist anymore. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Okay, that's great. So you basically you like to take from any artist you see around, something, anything that catches your eyes,
Exactly.
basically.
Something that catches my eye because a lot of people has knowledge, and so I
Mm,
want to learn from multiple people. So I it's not that I chose to do that. It's just that I'm like, oh shoot, this guy's pretty good too. Oh, this guy's good. Oh shoot, this guy's
right.
good. And it just started fading away that those guys I used to follow those guys, but not anymore.
Hmm.
And it's not a bad thing. They're just
No,
there's
no. I mean, it's part of the learning and bettering yourself, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Wow, amazing. And yes, I think we went over everything basically. Some question I didn't even have to ask because we kind of went over it.
Yeah,
And that's great. And but before we end the interview,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, tell our viewers, where they can find your art. What is your social media, where they can contact you for freelance work, or where can they find you?
Freelance work. Okay, so this is where it's gonna be. Let me just write it straight on my Photoshop.
Right.
Uh, Stanmoa.com.
Mhm.
Stan.moa at yeah, oops, yahoo.com. How do you do the Instagram stuff? Is it at
Yep, yeah. For Instagram and Twitter, just add and whatever
is it
your
at
your
or is
name.
it like pound?
No, just add.
Stan is awesome. Do I have 86 on my
Yeah, you do. For Instagram, Stan is awesome 86.
and my Twitch?
Twitch, yes. Twitch is also the same, I believe, right?
Yeah, Stan is awesome. So don't mind the name. It's cocky as hell, but it's something I did when I was
No, it's great. It's different.
yeah.
So there it is, guys. This is where you can find Stan, his work, or contact him if you guys are interested. And let's see. Is there anything you want to say before we conclude this? Anything you want to tell of yours?
Yeah, sorry I couldn't finish it, man.
Yeah, yeah.
It took
That's
so
why I
long.
should have told you earlier, but we got so into the topics, that I forgot to ask you. I wanted to ask you earlier but it's okay. It's great. At least we got that tracer picture that people can see.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, that is what Stan can do. Final product.
yeah. Just
So yeah.
don't mind this, cause the beginning stage, like I said, I freaking hate it. It's so much time
But
consuming.
right, and it's very time consuming, but that's how you better yourself, and then
Exactly.
over time you get faster. So yeah, so anyway, I just want to thank you, Stan, for doing this tonight, taking some time of your night because it's pretty late over there where you are,
Yeah, it's
and
alright.
and you have your family, so I just want to say thank you, for your time,
Hmm.
and I hope that we'll do this again maybe sometime.
Yeah, man. Hey, thank you for considering me to interview. I'm
Absolutely.
not a great artist. I'm a nobody, but
That's not true. Stan is awesome, guys, like his name says.
yeah, something I made up in high school.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much, you guys, for watching. This was my second interview, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another interview with Angela Wu, and also Dua, her, two great artists that I follow as well. And so yeah, I cannot wait to do that. So we'll see you on our next interview, and you guys have a good one. Thank you for watching, guys.
All right, man.
Bye, Stan. You still there, bro?
Yeah, I'm still here. Did you kill your
Good.
thing?
Yep. I just went offline. That's it,
Okay.
dude. It was awesome, man. I loved it.
Oh yeah, man. Hopefully I didn't sound too damn cocky or nothing.
No, I think it was great, and no matter what it is, like I told you at the beginning, I want this to just be like an honest thing, like people, because I don't want to like make it seem like a setup, because people can see that even when they watch video.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah,
what do you mean Pepsi is the best drink ever?
yeah,
Like, what?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was great. I loved it, and if you want, I can edit the part where your wife and your kid was crying if you want.
Oh,
But
could you hear it? Because I couldn't hear it. I had the headphones.
yeah, I could hear them.
Oh,
But it's
jeez.
okay. Don't worry. I'll tweak it, because right now it's live on Twitch, so people can watch again.
Yeah.
But when I re-upload it on YouTube, I'll fix it for you, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That'd
Yeah,
be nice.
yeah.
Thanks, man.
But dude, man, I loved it. It was great. We hit every question I wanted to ask you, and it lasted even longer, and I love it because I didn't even mind the time, but I knew that if we kept going, we'll talk too long.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to I wanted to keep the time from like an hour and a half, for each interview. So, but yeah, that was great, man. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the question, man. Like, there were some pretty good questions. Very very technical.
Yeah, thanks, man. Like, I don't know, man. Give me some feedback, man. What do you think? Like, was that something I should have done better?
No,
Other question that you think I should have asked that you wanted to talk about, but I didn't
um,
get to?
no, not really. I mean, all the questions you asked was like very technical, how to advance yourself type
Yeah,
of questions. So they were good. Um,
awesome.
nothing bad.
Well, that's great then. Well, I think this is it for me tonight. I was planning on drawing afterwards too, but man, I'm just tired, and I gotta wake up early for the interview I have with Angela,
Oh,
because she's in China right now. I mean, she's in Singapore,
oh,
so
that's nice. Also,
you know,
what time are you starting on your time?
so she wants me to get on online around 8 a.m. because she want me to, because she want to see how the setup is going to be, if it's going to
Yeah.
look good, just like we did. And once we're good, then we'll start. We might be a little late. It's not like we're going to be on point.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like how we did. So around that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm doing tomorrow, and then at 3 p.m. tomorrow, I got the other interview with the small artist.
Yeah.
So you're in the group, right? In the manga anime.
I am.
Yeah, and the artist in it, do I check out her?
Do I check out
She's
her?
one of yeah, I think she's one of the admin too. She
Um.
always posts about like
Oh, I think yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. If I see the pictures, I'll be like, oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she does like the cartoonish kiddish style, and she published books, and stuff like that, kids books.
Damn, I didn't
And
know she went that far.
yeah, and she's great. I love that, and like her style is simple, but it's creative, and I love it. And like I say, I want to have like all kind of artists, who can tell us about the experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
and she said she's willing to do it tomorrow, so that was great. So I was like,
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
man. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, and I mean, you can watch it live. I'll be live on Twitch, so.
What time is that? Oh,
So in the mornings at 9 a.m. with Angela, and then at 3 p.m. with Dua. So
nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So if you're
I'll be at work.
available tomorrow, oh yeah, that's true. Well, you can still listen, right? You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
even like drop in a few questions, here and there.
yeah, exactly. I'll do that.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, man, I think I'm gonna log off. I mean, I'm gonna turn off my computer and go to bed.
Sounds good, man. Hey,
And
thanks again, man.
so yeah, yeah, no problem. Are you gonna be on for a bit?
Yeah, because I'm already too deep, man.
You're into it now.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna finish this.
That's what's up. All right, bro. Thanks again, man. I'll see you tomorrow then.
All right, no problem, man. See ya.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
her going once.
It's okay.
María, este nene me tiene loca. Miles, gotta go.
In a minute. In a minute.
Mom,
I gotta go.
In a minute. Papa, llámame. See you Friday.
Okay, mommy. Hasta luego.
Oh, look who's back. Yo, what's going on, bro?
Hey, I'm just walking by. How you doing?
No te olvides de dónde vienes.
Seguro que sí.
Yo, Miles, you feel that earthquake last night?
Oh, what you talking about? I slept like a baby last night.
How's that new school?
So easy.
We miss you, Miles.
You miss me? I still live here. Wait, you miss me? Come on. Seriously, Dad, walking would have been fine.
My name is Peter Parker. I'm pretty sure you know the rest. I saved the city, fell in love, then I saved the city again and again and again. Look, I'm a comic book, a cereal, I did a Christmas album, and a so-so popsicle. But this isn't about me. Not anymore.
Spider-Man swings in once a day, zip-zap-zop in his little mask and answers to no one. I love you, Miles.
Yeah, I know, Dad.
You gotta say I love you back.
Dad, are you serious?
I wanna hear it.
Look at this place.
Dad, I love you.
Dad, I love you.
That's a copy.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Miles Morales. I'm the one and only Spider-Man. At least that's what I thought.
You ever hear of the Super Collider? You're gonna love this.
Dimension opening now.
You're like me.
That's impossible.
All right, kid, listen up. This fry is your universe. It's soggy, it's weird, it's gross. And this delicious normal fry is my universe. So you want to learn to be Spider-Man?
Can you teach me?
Yes, I can. Time to swing. Good, you're doing it. Double tap to release and whip it out again.
Okay.
Whip.
And release.
You're a natural. Whip.
Hey guys,
Who are you?
I'm Gwen Stacy. I'm from another dimension.
How many more spider people are there?
Hey, fellas.
Hello.
This could literally not get any weirder.
It can get weirder.
Okay.
We need to get back to our universes soon.
Brooklyn is gonna collapse. My family lives in Brooklyn.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Miles, what's wrong?
This was never your city. It's mine.
If I don't destroy the collider, none of us will have a home to go home to.
Remember, what makes you different
Let's go.
is what makes you Spider-Man.
Officer, I love you.
Wait, what?
That way. Other way, other way, other way, other way.
Do animals talk in this dimension? Because I don't want to freak them out.
Hi, I'm Eric Voss, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is such an impressive work of animation. It's ranking up there among the best Spider-Man stories because it actually gets what it's like to read a Spider-Man comic book and translate all that so beautifully to screen. Like, nothing against emo Peter, tall Peter, or Peter third time's a charm, but there's so much more to Spider-Man comics, and a story that celebrates the full Spider-Man history with some amazing visual storytelling really just nailed what we love about the character. So I'm gonna break down this movie scene by scene to point out all of the cool details that you might have overlooked, hidden animation jokes and Easter eggs, but also subtle creative choices made by the filmmakers to make Into the Spider-Verse work so well. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie yet, and let's get started. Okay, the opening frames of this movie already set it apart from every other Spider-Man movie that we've seen, and really every animated movie that we've seen before. The studio logos are depicted with these Ben-Day dots, which appear actually throughout every frame of the movie. Filmmakers of Into the Spider-Verse had a difficult task before them, because the Spider-Man character had already been rebooted so many many times on film. And they wanted this one to feel distinct. Their concept was for it to feel like a living painting, as if you were walking into an actual comic book. So you see all these comic book aesthetics throughout the movie. The Ben-Day dots, along with hatching lines, and both of these are used by older comic books to shade images without having to spend so much ink. And of course you see split screen panels and action words, thought panels, and talking bubbles. But beyond these visuals, the filmmakers also had to rebuild a whole new style of animation that you only really perceive on a subconscious level. So standard film is shot on 24 frames per second, and modern animated films follow this model, with the movement of like a Pixar movie blending pretty smoothly because every second is made up of 24 individual still images. But for Into the Spider-Verse, the animators had to animate in twos. That means doubling each frame so that you essentially get 12 frames per second. That was how traditional old school animation was done. So they reconstructed that style to give this movie a certain crispness to the movement from characters' hair or clothing, making things look almost, in their words, crunchy and sharp, so that you really have impact with an image. It burns into your psyche. That is why when you watch this movie, the art of each frame really stands out. Kind of like when you read a comic book. Each moment is so punctuated. By the way, Sony's actually trying to patent this animation technology. This whole comic book motif is also the reason for this stamp in the opening frames. Approved by the Comic Books Code Authority. The Comic Books Code Authority was a set of guidelines for comic books in the 50s to assure parents that comic books wouldn't turn their kids into sexual deviants or criminals or communists. Nice try, fascists. These guidelines forbid creating sympathy for the criminal, saying crime shouldn't be glamorous, but rather a sordid and unpleasant activity, and that criminals should be shown being punished for their actions. And no, this stamp isn't just a joke. Into the Spider-Verse actually abides by these rules. Villains like Kingpin and Aaron Davis might be shown some sympathy in that I guess their behavior is motivated by something deeper than simple pure evil, but you know, their criminality doesn't really look fun. They suffer a lot. No kid's gonna want to emulate them or dress up for them as Halloween, or if you're me, any time of the year. In the opening titles, we also see the recurring number of 42 shows up on a spider and on the lottery ball for Miles being selected for his school. Later it appears as cluttered numbers from a shattered street address sign. 42 is actually the number of the radioactive spider that bites Miles in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. It was the 42nd test of this spider that actually worked. In this movie, the number 42 appears over and over kind of to haunt Miles whenever his new Spider-Man powers burden him, kind of like a curse. And through all this, we hear the voice of Spider-Man, the Peter Parker of this Ultimate Universe. He's voiced by Chris Pine, and he says, "All right, let's do this one last time," which is repeated over and over again by every new Spider-Man that we meet. It's of course a nod to the endless numbers of reboots and reintroductions of Spidey in movies over the years. A Spider-Man comic book thunks down in front of us on the table, and on the cover you can see the signature of someone named M. Vignali. Marcello Vignali is a longtime film animator and artist who worked on this movie, but every time we see a new Spider-Man introduced, the comic book cover changes to credit the comic book artists who created those characters. So like at the end of the film, when we get introduced to Miles officially, comic book artists Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pacelli are on the cover. And when we meet Spider-Gwen, it's Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez. For Spider-Man Noir, it's David Hine, Fabrice Spolsky, and Carmine Di Giandemencio. And for Penny Parker, it's Gerard Way and Jake Wyatt. Now, as I said, this first Spider-Man universe is the one from the Ultimate Comics. This is Earth 1610. It's an alternate dimension from our normal default universe, Earth 616. That's why a lot of the products have alternate reality spins on them. Like there's Red X instead of FedEx, PDNY instead of NYPD, Coca Soda instead of RC Cola. Yep, that's the sound of 100 commenters who don't get the jokes correcting me saying, it's Coke, obviously. In the Ultimate Comics, Peter Parker actually dies and Miles Morales takes over. And this Peter also has blonde hair, which could be a nod to the Ben Reilly Spider-Man from the Clone Saga. Peter's introduction references several moments from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire. There was the train rescue from Spider-Man 2, the upside-down MJ kiss from the first one, the car flying through the window in Spider-Man 2, and of course the cringy pointing and dancing from Spider-Man 3. The cover of the Amazing Spider-Man 186 shows up, but here the title has actually been changed to True Life Tales. There's also a girl eating Spidey O's cereal, perhaps a nod to the real Spider-Man cereal from the 90s that was promoted with the Spider-Man animated series. We also see a Spider-Man popsicle, which is also a real thing, and a brief shot from the 60s Spider-Man animated series that gets a big shout out in the post-credit scene. And then the Spider-Man Christmas album includes titles like Spidey It's Cold Outside, Swinging Around the Mistletoe, Hello, Silent Night, You're Welcome, Joy to the World That I Just Saved, Spidey the Snowman, It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like a Non-Denominational Holiday, and Ave Maria. No joke on that one? That's no pun. Next, we meet the hero of this movie, Miles Morales, voiced by Shamik Moore. Now, he's singing the song Sunflower. It's a song written specifically for this movie by Post Malone. He actually makes a cameo later in this movie as a Brooklyn bystander. Now, Miles' background is quite different from Peter Parker's. Miles lives in Brooklyn, not Queens, and he still has his parents. He's the son of a black father and a Puerto Rican mother. Now, his father, Jefferson Davis, is voiced by Brian Tyree Henry. He's a cop with the PDNY, and look closely at his police cruiser. It has a license plate reading RFD 960. It's actually the same tag number for the car that the detectives drive in the show Law & Order. And Miles' dad misquotes the famous Uncle Ben quote, saying, "With great ability comes great accountability." The quote actually comes up a couple times throughout the movie. Now, Miles attends the Brooklyn Visions Academy, and in his English class, he's assigned Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, which actually sets up another running theme in the movie. Like the character Pip in Great Expectations, Miles struggles to live up to the expectations of this new elite society that he wants to join. Gwen Stacy is kind of this movie's parallel to Estella, who is Pip's romantic aspiration. But as we'll see throughout this movie, Miles defies these great expectations, with his answer to his book report being a graffiti illustration of the word expectations, foreshadowing his new spray painted design on his suit at the end of the movie, as Miles makes his literal mark on the world. But there's a very interesting detail hidden in this physics class. They watch a video from the Alchemax Corporation, featuring the head scientist, Olivia. Now, we later learn that her name is actually Olivia Octavius, this movie's version of the villain Doc Ock. But this early moment foreshadows the later reveal. Notice how Miles stands directly in front of her last name, hinting that she's someone important. Also, the number 8 shows up a ton around Olivia. And right away here, you can see that number in her character design. Her glasses frames are octagons. Later, Miles ditches his homework to hang out with his uncle Aaron, voiced by Mahershala Ali. He moonlights as the villain, the Prowler. And look closely at the art in his apartment and his clothes. They all feature some large predator cats. Actually, I think the painting above the couch says the word Prowler if you look closely at those skewed letters. Now, over in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Donald Glover plays the live-action version of Aaron Davis.
I don't want those weapons in this neighborhood. I got a nephew who live here.
Glover actually voiced Miles Morales in the animated series. Now, Miles' visit with his uncle is scored by Biggie's Hypnotize. Biggie was famously a Brooklyn rapper. So this music here is another thing that identifies this Spider-Man as a uniquely Brooklyn one. And as Miles and Aaron tag Miles' expectations design on the wall, Miles gets bitten by the Alchemax 42 spider, hilariously swatting it off. He gets his Spider-Man powers, he klutzes his way through school. Actually love how the school security guard who chases Miles is listening to the Spider-Man Christmas album that we saw earlier, and this is actually Chris Pine himself doing the vocals of this Jingle Bells parody. You actually hear a full version of the song in the end credits. And as Miles hangs on the side of the school building, fun little joke with the "Hang in there, kitty" motivational poster. And when Miles ends up in his dorm room, the comic book that lands on his face is another real Spider-Man comic book cover, Amazing Fantasy number 15. Miles panics and looks through his phone contacts, and if you look closely, he scrolls past the names of B. Bendis and Sarah Pichelli. Those are shout-outs to the creators of the Miles Morales character in the Ultimate Comics. And Miles witnesses Spider-Man locked in battle with Green Goblin. He's actually the monstrous Ultimate Comics version of the villain. In those comics, Green Goblin is the one who kills Peter Parker, not Kingpin. Prowler also shows up to fight Spidey, and later Spider-Man villain Tombstone shows up as part of Kingpin's henchman team. Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, oversees this Collider test run, and he's voiced by Liev Schreiber. I like how this movie stays true to Kingpin's gargantuan size from the comics. I guess there's only so much you can do with forced perspective on Vincent D'Onofrio and Michael Clark Duncan. Now, when the Collider turns on, notice how the interdimensional particles take the shape of Ben-Day ink dots. It's as if this device is tearing the fabric of these different comic book universes and causing the ink from the pages to spill onto each other. And on a screen beside Kingpin, you see the exact dimensions that are being linked. The one in the center, their universe, is E1610, while the others show E616, E13, E90412, E14513, and E8311. Those are all the exact Marvel Universe numbers for, respectively, Miles Morales, Peter Parker, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Peter Porker. And when Goblin holds Peter into the particle beam, Peter enters this trippy, webby, interdimensional space. Actually, all the spider people are shown getting sucked into this realm as they're crossing over into another dimension. This could be the web of life and destiny from the comics. That's the visual construct showing the cosmic connection between all the different parts of the Spider-Man multiverse. And after Kingpin kills Peter, Miles runs off and watches the world mourn the death of Spider-Man. Now, these various shots of Times Square are filled with Easter eggs and animation details. There's a movie billboard for From Dusk Till Shaun, which is a nod to the movie Shaun of the Dead. From Dusk Till Shaun was actually Edgar Wright's title idea for a Shaun of the Dead sequel with vampires, like From Dusk Till Dawn. There's another movie poster for a Seth Rogen comedy called Hold Your Horses, and a show called Clone College, which is a fictional spin-off of the animated series Clone High, created by Spider-Verse producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller. There's also an ad for a Broadway show called Hi Hello, a nod to Oh Hello from the Broadway show from Nick Kroll and John Mulaney. John Mulaney, of course, voices Peter Porker. And it looks like in Earth 1610, New York's baseball team is the New York Red Sox. And according to one of the signs, Blake Griffin plays for them. Sure. And there's a sign for a restaurant called Planet Inglewood, of course, spin on Planet Hollywood. There are also signs for Bendis, that's another shout out to Brian Bendis, and a sign for Romita Ramen, probably a nod to Spider-Man artist John Romita Sr. Now, later shots of Times Square, you can see Red Man Group, a parody of the Blue Man Group, and Kissland, which looks like an alternate version of the Weeknd Starboy album cover. There are also a bunch of signs for like the Golden Boys, Steph Curry, and some all-female movie called Baby Shower, which kind of looks like a nod to Bridesmaids, and a sign for a Snapchat app called Peekaboo, which is honestly such a better name than Snapchat. Now, this whole morning sequence leads to an emotional cameo by an animated version of Stan Lee, who runs a Spider-Man collectible shop where Miles buys a costume. He says about Spider-Man, "I'm really gonna miss him," basically voicing all of our thoughts about Stan Lee. Miles' self-training failure leads him to Peter's grave, where he meets Earth 616 Spider-Man, Peter B. Parker, voiced by Jake Johnson. He says in his introductory montage that he's been at it for 22 years, compared to Chris Pine Peter Parker, who said he'd been at it for 10. This means that Peter Parker was 26 when he died, and that this chubby Peter B. Parker has lived the age of 38. Now, Peter B's intro also shows him fighting alternate versions of the villain Scorpion, Doc Ock, and the Lizard. He also blows all of his money trying to open a TGI Spidey's restaurant, and he says that he broke his back at one point, which could be a joke about Peter Parker hurting his back in that scene in Spider-Man 2.
My back! Oh, my back!
By the way, that was apparently a joke about how Tobey Maguire held out on production for Spider-Man 2 because he injured his back while shooting the movie Seabiscuit, and he was able to convince Sony to pay him way more money to do Spider-Man 2. After that amazing chase scene that we saw in the post-credit scene of Venom, Peter and Miles get to know each other, and they head to the Alchemax lab in Hudson Valley. Now, Alchemax is kind of one of these evil, science-y corporations. It showed up first in the Spider-Man 2099 comics, but it was later introduced in a present-day form in the Ultimate Comics. Now, here we see even more clues about the scientist Olivia, voiced by Katherine Hahn, and how she's secretly Doc Ock. Look at all the ceiling light fixtures. They're all octagonal, along with various octagon shapes throughout the lab. And a true smoking gun, you can see a spare Doc Ock claw laying on the work table. Liv's notebook also contains the note X-8, and later the missing number of the password that Peter signals to Miles is an 8. Now, we learned from this sequence that Miles has the power of invisibility, which, along with that electric charge thing that we see later, these are all new powers that the Ultimate Spider-Man gains in those comics. Little detail that I loved as Peter and Miles escape: when Miles chucks the bagel that Peter stole back in the kitchen, hits one of the scientists firing on him with a little bagel action word. Now, these two are saved by Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy. Her montage shows her drumming in the comics. Gwen Stacy plays in the band called Mary Janes, and she's seen fighting the Lizard, who transforms back into a scaly man and dies, and she says, "I couldn't save my best friend." This is a reference to how in those comics, Gwen Stacy's Spider-Man faces off against a Peter Parker who turns into the villain, the Lizard. And right before she gets sucked out of her dimension, you can actually see a Doc Ock claw reaching out to try to grab her. So you can think of it this way: by defeating Doc Ock in this reality, Spider-Gwen finally finishes that battle. Next, we learn why Kingpin is experimenting with alternate dimensions to begin with. A flashback shows his ex-wife, Vanessa Fisk, and his son, Richard Fisk. These are both part of the Kingpin's backstory in the comics. We also saw Vanessa Fisk show up in the Daredevil series. The team heads to Queens, to the home of Aunt May. She's voiced in this movie by Lily Tomlin. She brings them down into Ultimate Peter's high-tech spider cave, which also has a ton of references. There's a Spider-Man skateboard, Spider-Man action figures, a Spider-Mobile that actually originated from a run of Spider-Man comics in the 70s that was focused on selling toys. And of course, there are a ton of Spider-Man suits. Here are the ones I spotted and was able to recognize. There's the Iron Spider suit from the Marvel Civil War comics that has the gold lining that was meant to identify Peter as part of Team Iron Man. To the left of that is the Spider Armor MK2, which Peter actually designed to be bulletproof for a brief period when he lost his Spidey sense and couldn't dodge bullets. And next to that, I think kind of looks like the Secret Wars suit. Remember that had the white spider logo when the Venom symbiote briefly attaches Spider-Man? Then there's the big time stealth suit, which Peter makes in response to the Spider Slayer program. And beside that is the suit with the cape that Miles points out to Peter. That looks like the cape that Spider-Man wore in the Marvel Comics What If series, issue 19. That's when Spider-Man became a TV star. There's also what looks like the Secret Wars stealth suit. And at one point in the background, you can definitely see the white logo of the suit from the recent Spider-Man PS4 game. Okay, next, Aunt May introduces the full team, including 3 other Spider people. First, there's Spider-Man Noir from Earth 90214. He comes from a darker, crime-ridden 1930s world, and he uses guns, he kills people. He's voiced by Nicolas Cage. Then there's Penny Parker from Earth 14512. She actually gets adopted by Uncle Ben and Aunt May, and she pilots this mech spider robot with the help of a spider she's kind of telekinetically connected to. She's voiced by Kimiko Glenn. And then of course there's Peter Porker, Spider-Ham from Earth 8311. He was actually a spider bitten by a radioactive pig, which turned him into a pig with the abilities of the spider. He's voiced by comedian John Mulaney. Now, in addition to these new intro montages, notice how the animation style changes for each new character. Like Noir has a monochromatic Frank Miller Sin City style aesthetic. Penny Parker has a really bright Sailor Moon anime style. And Peter Porker is designed in the style of Warner Brothers Looney Tunes characters. He moves a lot like Porky Pig in Space Jam. And as they examine Kingpin's crime operation, another Marvel villain shows up. This is the villain Hammerhead. He's got that big, dumb blockhead. He actually doesn't show up in the movie at all. Instead, Scorpion ends up joining the villain team later on. Now, when Miles runs off, his father runs through his phone contacts trying to find him, and a bunch of names show up as Easter eggs. D. Cowan, probably Dennis Cowan, longtime comic book artist. C. McKenna, I'm thinking that's Chris McKenna. He's a screenwriter and friend of Lord and Miller. He worked on the Lego Batman movie and Ant-Man the Wasp and Homecoming and Far From Home. T. McFarlane, probably for Todd McFarlane, Spider-Man artist and co-creator of Image Comics. And at the end you can see Steve Ditko listed. He, along with Stan Lee, was one of these major comics pioneers. He co-created the Spider-Man character and a bunch of other characters, and he passed away earlier this year. That's why that post-credit moment honored both Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. After Kingpin's crew attacks Aunt May's house and Kingpin murders Uncle Aaron, the other Spider people find Miles in his dorm room. In this scene, you can see that he has a Chance the Rapper poster for the mixtape coloring book. Miles' roommate walks in on them, and we never really hear anything from this guy. I'm thinking this could be a version of Gonke Lee from the Ultimate Comics. The character of Ned Leeds in Spider-Man Homecoming basically took everything from that character, and he's reading and imagining that comic. That seems like a nod to the What If series. Now later, Miles escapes the webbing that Peter puts him in by accessing his electric pulse power, and he suits up with his new badass black and red suit. Actually, a detail I really liked here, notice how when Miles takes his big leap of faith and he swings back up, his woo cheer follows up as letters. And that contrasts the earlier moment of his failed jump. Remember when his terrified "ah" followed him down? And as he swings into action, Miles passes a neon sign reading Perry Joe. It's actually a nod to the guitarist Joe Perry from Aerosmith. I just learned that he composed the opening music for the 90s Spider-Man animated series, as well as the awesome X-Men animated series music. And this brings us to the epic climax of this movie. It's insane, it's beautiful. There's random objects floating in a 3-dimensional space as the dimensions crash on top of each other. It makes for a perfect melee setting for a group of spider things looking for surfaces to swing from. And among all this chaos, you can actually see some familiar landmarks surrounding Kingpin. There's a red water tower and Brooklyn Bridge. These could be nods to the red-soaked imagery from the opening credits of the Netflix Daredevil show, in which of course Wilson Fisk was the main antagonist. In the end, Miles defeats Kingpin by using his Uncle Aaron's classic move, the hand on the shoulder, hey. This is an example of some really good screenwriting. Miles is using the wisdom gained from his uncle to avenge his uncle and defeat his uncle's killer. Full circle. Star Wars actually pulled off the same device, right? Like Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan Kenobi, and later Luke uses Obi-Wan's wisdom, echoing in his head, gained from their past lessons, to deliver the final blow against Vader. And as the various dimensions crash in on each other, the filmmakers include an interesting shot of interdimensional webbing flying past us. And notice how they hold on it for a few seconds longer than you probably would. To me, this makes the shot seem like a possible homage to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Specifically that one super colorful, psychedelic, long take point of view shot as we soared through dimensions. And then the final sequence of this movie bookends the story with the introduction of Miles Morales. He's going through all the same steps of his counterparts every time we got to meet them, and now he takes over as the star of this corner of the Spider-Verse. Now, this movie did have a post-credit scene that introduced Spider-Man 2099 to us. I actually go into all the details of that in another video, go check it out. But for now, question for you guys, how does this Spider-Man film rank up against the other Spider-Man movies that you've seen? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Tom Holland's reboot in Civil War and in Homecoming, and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is, for me, one of my all-time favorite superhero movies, period. But I don't know, when I see the look and the design of this Into the Spider-Verse, and just the joy of all the Spider people interacting with each other, I don't know, don't yell at me, but this might be my favorite Spider-Man movie ever. Comment down below with your favorite cinematic Spider-Man, and follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at EAVoss, and subscribe to New Rockstars for Spider everything. You know, one of these days, you're gonna go look at the Spider-Man suit that I'm always wearing underneath these clothes. That's why you gotta subscribe, and you gotta watch everything. Oh shoot, I gotta get oh, dang it, he said no refunds.
What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Okay, so about a month ago, at least I want to say about a month ago, Ego Raptor over at Game Grumps had a question about Marvel. You know, he was like, well, I just finished reading House of M. I want to read more X-Men. Where do I go next? And it was a really good question because I was sitting here thinking about this and I was like, man, that's true. Like, a lot of people don't know because the X-Men just kind of like spun out into a litany of titles. It's always been that way. You originally had X-Men back in the 1960s, and then you had Uncanny X-Men in 1975, which was like the creation of a second line of titles. And then in 1992, you had X-Men Volume 2. So then you had X-Men and Uncanny X-Men as two publications running at the same time. And as the X-Men grew to be more and more popular, you had all kinds of things. You know, X-Men Deluxe, and you had X-Men Unlimited, you know, and then eventually that spun out. You had Extreme X-Men, and then you had New X-Men and Astonishing X-Men. And you had so many different X-Men publications that it just baffled the mind. People didn't really know where to start or where to go. So this video goes out to Ego Raptor. And whoever else is interested in this, but when Joe Quesada took over Marvel in the early 2000s, Marvel was coming out of the comic bust, right? I mean, the comic book industry almost collapsed. Marvel had to sell off the rights to a bunch of their characters in movie form in order to stay afloat, which is why Fox has the X-Men, the Fantastic Four. That's why Sony has Spider-Man. That's why Universal had the Incredible Hulk for a while, I think. They might still have the Hulk, now that I think about it. But, you know, Marvel was selling off things left and right, and Joe Quesada said, okay, here's the problem. We spent far too long building, you know, doing world building. What we need to do is we need to get back to basics. We need to get back to a core set of groups. We need to get back to a core set of people, focus on those, and then basically rebuild. It was effectively a reboot in a lot of different ways. It's just Marvel doesn't do New 52. They don't line-wide reboot. They don't start everything back at zero again. They just say, let's revamp and change things up. Now, Joe Quesada did this in a couple forms. It was Avengers Disassembled and House of M. The Avengers were very, very easy to basically reset. I mean, they're just a team. All you have to do is just break the team up. All you have to do is just give a reason for why the Avengers can't be Avengers anymore. The issue is that Tony Stark bankrolled the Avengers team. For those of you guys who were wondering how the Avengers made their money, how they got paid, Tony Stark was the one that took care of all that. He gave them a place to stay. He basically paid their bills, made sure they had money. They received a stipend, but it was enough for them to take care of the things they needed to do. All Joe Quesada did was come along and say, hey, look, if we're basically going to reboot the mutant landscape, if we're going to get rid of the Avengers, then why not kill two birds with one stone? And so what he did is he grabbed Scarlet Witch, a character whose powers had been ambiguous for years and years and years, and said, okay, let's go ahead and just change this up a bit. Let's go ahead and just use her as a way to get rid of the Avengers and then eventually reboot the mutant landscape. And so what he did is, or at least what Marvel did with Avengers Disassembled, is they had a segment in the story where the Scarlet Witch had basically controlled the mind of Tony Stark, or at least modified his body's physical structure to the point that he appeared drunk. And the result was that because people thought that he had relapsed back into alcoholism as bad as he was during the events of Demon in a Bottle, the stocks of Stark Industries just plummeted. Now, they didn't fall so bad that Tony Stark couldn't take care of himself, but they fell bad enough that Tony Stark could not fund the Avengers anymore. And so the Avengers basically had to break up. Now, of course, the whole basis behind this was because the Scarlet Witch was convinced that the Avengers had taken her kids. She was convinced that her kids were real. The Avengers had taken them, and she basically waged a war against them. But at the end of Avengers Disassembled, after this great big huge conflict and the death of Hawkeye and so on and so forth, Marvel went into the House of M, and that's what this does. This basically picks up with the idea that at the end of Avengers Disassembled, Magneto had taken his daughter, Wanda Maximoff, and said, I'm sorry I'd abandoned you for so long. I'm sorry I had ignored you for so long. Clearly, you have a serious illness that we need to sort out, an illness of the mind. Come with me to Genosha, and we will go sort that out. Of course, Genosha being a mutant refuge that was wiped out during Grant Morrison's new X-Men by Cassandra Nova. You'll find that video down in the description, by the way, where Cassandra Nova sent Sentinels and wiped out 16 million mutants. But this initially picks up with Wanda Maximoff giving birth to children. Now, this is really kind of cool because keep in mind, for years and years, it was Wanda Maximoff and it was Vision. They were not really like a power couple, but they were an interesting couple within the realm of Marvel Comics. Essentially, an android in a relationship with a biological woman. Of course, the question being, how in the world are they going to reproduce? But somehow they managed to find a way. But remember, this is basically Wanda's perfect dream. This is her, situation where she's like, yeah, we finally have kids. Myself and Vision finally have a family. Everyone who loves her is there. She doesn't feel neglected. She doesn't feel abandoned. Of course, Doctor Strange was delivering the children. Her brother Quicksilver's there. Magneto's there. This is a perfect dream. The issue with this is that Xavier appears and says, you need to stop. You have to stop doing this. And this is the first step to Quesada and Marvel showing us the powers of Scarlet Witch. Up until this point, it had basically just been probability manipulation. It was a plot device. It was Scarlet Witch's powers do whatever it is that she needs to do in order to defeat whatever villain she's facing at any particular point in time. That's basically how her powers worked. Now, it wasn't as though she would single-handedly do it. It would just be like, oh man, the X-Men are on the ropes. If only we had this one thing, well then suddenly it's there. Suddenly the one break they need to win the battle is there because that's just what Scarlet Witch's powers do. And so because of that, she was basically this character that was just kind of out there in left field. And because there was no real foundation for her abilities, because there was no real, solid concept for her powers, aside from some measure of magic or hex or something like that, then eventually fans just kind of stopped caring about her. And so because of that, this is basically Quesada and everybody saying, the Scarlet Witch is warping reality. She's literally changing reality around her. And that's what's happening here. Not only that, something else that I'd like you to notice is that with regards to her powers, they're growing, they're progressing, they're becoming more and more potent to the point that Xavier can't curtail them anymore. And that's effectively what's been happening here. During the time when she's been in Genosha, during the time that she's been under the care of Magneto, that somewhere along the line, Xavier had basically arrived here and he had shown up for the purpose of trying to figure out how to control Wanda Maximoff's powers, how to bring them back under her ability to maintain. And again, this is always one of the focal points of Charles Xavier because keep in mind, with his son Legion, Legion's multiple personalities always ran amok. You never knew, if you walked up on David Haller, you wouldn't know if you were talking to David Haller himself, if you were talking to Susan and Sunshine, if you were talking to the Origamist, you wouldn't know which personality you were talking to. You could have been talking to like Endgame for all you know. And so the idea was for Xavier to always go through and try to find a way to keep his son's powers under control. And so because of this history with dealing with Legion is basically brought over to Wanda Maximoff. The issue is that as far as Xavier's concerned, this can't be controlled. Her powers can't be contained. They're growing too extreme. They're growing too potent to the point that she'll become a threat to the entire multiverse. And that's actually something that we'll focus on once we get to the end of House of M, is how far reaching the powers of Wanda Maximoff really go. Because at the end of this story, she basically becomes a multiversal threat. Like it's stupid how powerful she is at the end of this story. But in response to the increasing powers of Wanda Maximoff, the fact that they can't be kept in check, Xavier basically calls a meeting of the Avengers and the X-Men. Now, the reason why this is done is because in the end, these are the two top teams in Marvel Comics. It just makes good sense, right? I mean, sure, he could call together a group of the X-Men, but there are individuals who have a lot of experience with Wanda Maximoff because she was part of the Avengers. At the same time, the X-Men have faced off against her. And so it's just one of these things where it's kind of grabbing everybody that's had any kind of a role in Wanda's life. And the reason why is because Xavier is quite seriously pondering the idea of killing Wanda Maximoff. It's him basically saying her powers are growing too extreme to control. Somebody is going to do something, and for all we know, she could just destroy the universe itself. And so he says her powers are too extreme. We basically have to find a way to bring it down. Now, the cool thing about this is the way that Bendis wrote this story. Bendis is really, really good when it comes to like interpersonal relationships among comic book characters. He's extremely good when it comes to writing characters and how they relate to others. It's one of the things that I love the most about his stories. That's why Dr. Doom, being Iron Man right now, and Infamous Iron Man, is so cool because it's a huge change from the status quo that we're used to when it comes to Tony Stark. But the idea here is that Quicksilver essentially has to, is confronted by Magneto. Of course, Quicksilver's spending all his time, with his son. But the issue here is that Quicksilver's like, you got to do something. They're going to kill your daughter and you have to do something. Now, the funny thing about this is that when it comes to Magneto, he's always been a bit disconnected from everyone, from mutants, from humans, so on and so forth. Sure, he's looked to protect mutants, but in this scenario, he's basically walking a knife's edge. On one hand, his daughter's powers have grown to the extreme and they can't be controlled. On the other hand, it's his daughter. And it's one of these situations where it's like, a father of any real measure would stand against the world and would watch the world burn if it meant that he could keep their child, keep his child alive. That's the kind of sentiment that Magneto's feeling right now. But the issue is he's kind of torn because it's like the world could literally burn because of Scarlet Witch and her extreme powers. And this is the question that he has to Quicksilver. What would you have me do? Would you have me just kill everyone? Would you have me just stand guard here like a sentinel in Genosha, and anybody who comes knocking on the door of our home wanting to take out Wanda Maximoff gets killed? What would you have me do? And so it creates this really weird situation because in the end, there's arguments on both sides. For example, Cyclops is like, as Charles Xavier, you've stood for the preservation of life, even preserving the lives of people who would see you dead. You stand for the preservation of life. This is no different, but it is. And that's the huge thing here. This isn't Legion, all right? It's not like he's just gonna read the minds of people. I mean, sure, Legion launched Legion Quest. He went into the past, he intended to kill Magneto, Xavier jumped in the way, but it was him doing what he thought was the right thing to do. He was still in full control of his faculties. The Scarlet Witch is not. It would be like if Robert Reynolds turned into the Void, lost his mind, and decided to eliminate all things in existence. If the Sentry basically became the bad guy. That's basically what's happening here, and that's the case that Charles Xavier's making. This is not her in full control of her faculties. She's insane. She's lost her mind. And so in the end, what they agree on is they say, look, if we're really pondering the idea of killing Wanda Maximoff, if we're really pondering the idea of killing someone who's been a friend, an enemy, an ally, one of the most powerful beings we've ever met, then the very least we should do is ask her how she feels. I mean, at least ask her what she thinks. Now, I don't know, I'd love to see how that conversation goes down. Hey, Wanda, we're thinking about killing you, but we just want to know how you feel about that. I'd love to know how that conversation would go down. The problem is that once they all race over to the location of where Wanda Maximoff is supposed to be, she's gone. Not only that, Charles Xavier is the first one to disappear. Now, we'll find out why Charles Xavier is the first one to disappear, but Charles Xavier is the first one to vanish. After that, people just start disappearing left and right. They're just gone. No one knows where they go to. They just vanish from one location to the next. Finally, Spider-Man's the last guy left. Things just sort of distort, and then we wake up with Peter Parker when he's in his apartment, with a baby crying, and he's married to Gwen Stacy. Now, this is where we basically learn what it is that the Scarlet Witch is doing. The Scarlet Witch effectively created a perfect world. That's kind of, what she did. Not really perfect, but perfect in, 90% of the time. I mean, there were some people for like Ben Grimm, the world just absolutely sucked. But for the most part, it was perfect in almost every way, in the sense that everybody basically got their heart's desire. For example, we initially pick up with Steve Rogers, and that's kind of the crazy thing, is because for him, he basically didn't have to outlive his friends. He was able to fight and, continue fighting in World War II. He survived the experience, and he lived a life alongside his friends. Now, there is a tie-in for Captain America, and it focuses on all that, basically how married to Peggy Carter for a while, they eventually got divorced, but it was the idea that for a time, he got everything that he wanted. His life progressed the way that he wanted it to initially, but that was the whole crux here, is Steve Rogers was literally always living in the past, and so what he got was the life he wanted in the past. The problem is with the modern day, he was never thinking about the present. He was never thinking about the long term. All he wanted to do was go back where his life left off, pick up from there, and continue on. That's what he got, but then everything began to go south. From here, we actually end up joining with Cyclops and Emma Frost. Now, this actually makes a lot more sense, and one of the reasons why I say that is, in Marvel Comics, Cyclops and Emma Frost being together was something that had long since been running. I mean, really, with Jean Grey, with her character kind of being out of the picture, with her being killed off, coming back, and then being killed off again, it basically set the stage for Grant Morrison to kind of mix things around, dance things around. It was a chance for Chuck Austin to do the exact same thing, and to basically remove Jean Grey from the equation and to pair up Cyclops and Emma Frost. The result was that once they became headmaster and headmistress of the Xavier Institute after the events of House of M, that it made sense that the two of them were going to be together, but it was really this idea that they always shared a connection. And so even if their minds had changed only recently, the two of them very much saw themselves together. They saw themselves as a legitimate couple. But again, this is really only because Jean Grey is not part of the picture, but even if she was, it wouldn't matter because this is still part of Cyclops. If this was a perfect world, Jean Grey could be brought back by Scarlet Witch. Jean Grey could be resurrected, and Cyclops would be with Jean, but instead he's with Emma Frost. And so from here, we kind of pick up with the irrelevant characters that became relevant. And this really hits home at the heart of what the Scarlet Witch did. When we basically talk about the idea of characters who basically get a perfect life, who get a perfect world. For example, we pick up with Alison Blair, we pick up with Dazzler, and no matter what It's Super Effective might say, no matter what Faust might say, Dazzler's never been relevant. She was never a relevant character. But neither was Simon Williams, and neither was Carol Danvers. Now, people will look at me and they'll say Carol Danvers was never really a relevant character. No, she was cool when she was on the Avengers, but she was never able to hold a solo title for any measure of time outside of her initial appearance. And the reason why was because back then, she was a sex object. She was one of the earliest characters that was used in order to bring in young boys into comic books. But once more and more characters started popping up like that, Rogue and so on and so forth, when Mystique was kind of transformed, her physical design was transformed to make her very, very interesting to young boys. The result was that, Carol Danvers just kind of took a back seat. Nobody really cared about her character that much anymore. We know that just because of all the changes her character went through and so on and so forth. And so, her and Simon Williams and Allison were kind of like the lower echelon characters in Marvel Comics. But in the House of M, Allison Blair has her own TV show. Simon Williams is wildly popular. Carol Danvers is the most popular superhero on the planet. They all have the lives that they were looking for. They all have the lives that they were wanting. Now, from here, we actually switch over to Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is kind of cool because what this shows us is that not Vogue and so on and so forth, when Mystique was kind of transformed, her physical design was transformed to make her very, very interesting to young boys. The result was that, Carol Danvers just kind of took a back seat. Nobody really cared about her character that much anymore. We know that just because of all the changes her character went through and so on and so forth. And so, her and Simon Williams and Allison were kind of like the lower echelon characters in Marvel Comics. But in the House of M, Allison Blair has her own TV show. Simon Williams is wildly popular. Carol Danvers is the most popular superhero on the planet. They all have the lives that they were looking for. They all have the lives that they were wanting. Now, from here, we actually switch over to Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is kind of cool because what this shows us is that not everybody goes on to live this huge grandiose life or even amount to any measure of a superhero. Instead, we actually end up joining Kitty Pryde. And Kitty Pryde is just a mutant who's a teacher. Now, that's the cool thing about that is because what that tells us is that Kitty Pryde, when she was part of the X-Men, all she ever wanted to do was be a teacher. She just wanted to teach the next generation of kids. That was it. She didn't want to do some great big huge grandiose thing. She didn't want to be massive in terms of being a superhero and so on and so forth. She just wanted to make sure the next generation was able to function adequately when it came to understanding their abilities, understanding what they were capable of. Now, from here, we actually end up joining with Doctor Strange. And this is actually kind of a cool moment here. And the reason why I say that is because Doctor Strange is actually speaking to his client, Robert Reynolds. Now, the funny thing about this is this basically shows us how the Void compares to Scarlet Witch. One of the questions that I get a lot is when it comes to the ability of beings to warp reality, how do they compare to one another? Is one stronger than the other? When it comes to that level of power, it's really not a measure of which one's stronger than the other, just because of the fact that if they were to actually fight and use the full potential of their powers, it would just lay waste to the universe. I mean, it would just result in the end of all things. I mean, that would really be what would happen. We saw that during Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers when the Beyonders, these, beings that were just stupid powerful from beyond the multiverse, invaded the multiverse, started killing off all the cosmic entities, and then fought the Living Tribunal. It just resulted in the death of everything. I mean, all these different cosmic entities just started getting obliterated because they couldn't stand against that kind of power. With regards to the Void is the evil aspect of the Century Robert Reynolds. Robert Reynolds, again, is one of Marvel's versions of Superman alongside Hyperion, Gladiator, a few others here and there. But the other half is he basically deals with multiple personality disorder. The Void represents every dark ambition, every ounce of hatred, every bit of distrust that Robert Reynolds has in his body. The problem is that the Void, being so filled with anger and power, is insanely powerful. There's the What If story for Siege, I think it is, where the Void kills the Marvel Universe. It wipes out everything in existence. Of course, you'll find that video down in the description as well. But what this also tells us is that within the House of M, the Void still exists. And so this gives us two ideas here. The first is that the Void is an intrinsic part of Robert Reynolds. As long as Robert Reynolds exists, the Void will be there. The second is that the Void is too powerful to contain. The Void is too powerful of a being for the Scarlet Witch to just eliminate. Because if this was the dream life that everybody had, Robert Reynolds wouldn't have the Void. The Void wouldn't be there. And so because of this basically tells us the Scarlet Witch cannot contain the power that the Void possesses. The Void will always come back. The Void will always be there. And of course, we find this when Robert Reynolds is talking to Doctor Strange about how there's this black wall, this black darkness that always tries to encroach on him, but it always ends up going away. And so, of course, what we also learn here is that Doctor Strange is not the Sorcerer Supreme. Doctor Strange is just a psychiatrist. That's it. Like, he literally just listens to people's problems all day long. And again, this ties into the idea that Doctor Strange was just tired of listening, tired of being the Sorcerer Supreme. He was tired of having to jump from dimension to dimension, losing his humanity. He wanted a simpler life, and a simpler life is exactly what he got. And so from here, we actually end up transitioning over to a Colossus. And that's one of the coolest things about this, is because with the character of Colossus, he's never part of the X-Men. The X-Men were never formed. And what this basically tells us is that was his sole purpose. The only reason why Colossus ever came to America in the first place was because Charles Xavier went to him and said, "We want you to be part of the the X-Men, I want you to be part of a team that can help fight off evil in the world. And Colossus said, okay. Without Charles Xavier being there, and we'll find out why Charles Xavier isn't here now, but without Charles Xavier being there, Colossus didn't have a reason to leave Russia. And so he's basically been there ever since. He has his mutant powers, but he's not a superhero. He just lives a solitary life in Russia by himself. And so it creates a really interesting situation. But at this point, we basically pick up with Wolverine himself. And I know a lot of you guys were kind of like, when do we get to Wolverine? We pick up with Wolverine himself. And the issue here is that Wolverine basically just remembers everything. He remembers everything before the events of House of M. Now, Bendis does not tell us why, at least not initially. He does not tell us why it is that Wolverine remembers everything before the House of M. He just does. Now, Bendis will do this. Bendis will do this in stories that he writes. He'll basically introduce plot devices. He'll introduce some character that will just serve no other purpose than to give him a way out, than to give Bendis a way to end the story. It doesn't mean it's bad. Everybody does that. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just sometimes the way he does it is bad. For example, Ulysses in Civil War II. Bendis didn't know what to do with him, so he basically just made him a cosmic entity, and then Ulysses just kind of went out into the universe, and that was the end of him. He'll probably never be seen or heard from again. But that's essentially what happened to his character. That's what Bendis does sometimes when it comes to these things. And so with Wolverine waking up right off the bat, he wakes up to what appears to be Jean Grey, but is actually revealed to be Mystique. Not only that, we actually also find out that like Toad, that Jessica Drew, that all these people are here, and then he finds out that he's actually on a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, but it's not S.H.I.E.L.D. That is basically Magneto's own personal helicarrier, or I guess one of the mini helicarriers that Magneto has at his disposal. And so again, it's kind of jumping through these memories of Wolverine as he's recollecting all the way back to when his powers first manifested, his first battle with the Incredible Hulk, the Weapon X project, his wife, the conflict with Jean Grey, Charles Xavier, all these different things. And it's basically him saying, what in the heck is going on here right now? Things are not supposed to be this way. Now, something that I want to talk about here for a second is the nature of reality warping. When it comes to Marvel Comics, whenever a reality is distorted or whenever a reality is changed, like a new reality, a new universe is created, like the House of M, what happens is it's not like it just picks up all of a sudden. It's not like if you were walking down the road, you're walking down the road of this universe and then you just hop over to the sidewalk. It's not like there's nothing behind you. There's everything behind you. There's a whole backstory to the House of M universe. There's all kinds of things that were there. And so essentially what is happening with regards to this House of M universe with Wolverine is that this universe, when the Scarlet Witch created it, she created this universe dating all the way back to its initial introduction, during some big bang that led to the creation of this reality. And things began to unfold the way universes always unfold, the creation of planets and creation of solar systems and galaxies and so on and so forth, all leading up to this point. Essentially what's happened is it's like the mind of Wolverine has been transferred over to this House of M reality version, and the result is that he just kind of wakes up. Now, the way this was initially written, it wasn't that way. The way this was initially written, the main Marvel universe had just been gone. It just disappeared, and this took its place. But when Marvel went through following the events of House of M, and they started talking about this universe and how everything was affected, Marvel basically said this was an alternate reality, that the main Marvel universe still continued on, but Wolverine's mind had just kind of been sent over. It was a strange situation. That's one of the issues that Marvel had with their multiverse, and one of the reasons why they got rid of it going up into Secret Wars was because it got to the point where it was really difficult to maintain, and it was really difficult to explain it and to understand what was going on in comparison to normal stories. But the long and short of this is that Wolverine's basically coming to the recollection that everything's wrong here. He shouldn't be in a relationship with Mystique, or they shouldn't be sleeping together at the very least. He doesn't know anything that's going on. He doesn't recognize any of these ships. When he jumps off the helicarrier, he lands on the ground. You've got Simon Williams, who's really popular. You've got Mary Jane Watson, who's an actress out of Hollywood that has one of the best actresses in Hollywood. You've got people that are celebrating Spider-Man. You've got all these weird things going on, and he doesn't understand why. And so for him, he's like, reality's been screwed up. Reality's been distorted. And so, of course, the journey of Wolverine takes him to the most logical place, right? I mean, when it comes to Wolverine, I wouldn't really say that he trusts people, but I would say that he does have things that are familiar to him. And the most familiar thing resides in Westchester County in New York, which is, of course, the Xavier Institute. And so when he gets there, he literally just kind of breaks into the home, only to find out that it's not Charles Xavier's home. This has never been the home of Charles Xavier. This was just the home of some random family, and he literally just kind of showed up in their house. And it was just a really weird situation. But at this point, he kind of takes off to a local diner, basically calls 411, says, I need a name, Charles Xavier, based out of New York. Charles Xavier doesn't exist. Charles Xavier isn't there. And so what this does is it basically follows Wolverine as he begins to try to go through and try to discover everything that's happening. And that's what makes this kind of cool, because of the fact that we're literally following him. We're following the only guy that seems to know what's going on, the only guy who seems to realize that this reality has been distorted, this reality has been screwed up. And so, of course, along the way, day, he's being chased by Mystique, by Jessica Drew, Nightcrawler, Toad, and Rogue. But this is basically kind of like a reimagining of Team X. You know, when it came to the concept of Team X, that was basically where Wolverine first got his start. You know, Wolverine, of course, developed his powers when he was a kid, and he just kind of went on the run for a little while. He was part of the Civil War, World War I, World War II. He fought alongside in a lot of these different conflicts. This all eventually led to the 1960s when he was paired up with Sabretooth and a handful of others in a joint venture between the United States CIA and Canada's clandestine group Department K to basically operate as Team X, and they carried out a bunch of Black Ops missions. But because of the fact that Team X was basically governed by the CIA, eventually he was rolled into the Weapon X project, which led to the adamantium bonding process and all that kind of good stuff. But the idea here is that this is basically a reimagining, that it's a government-sanctioned Black Ops team that carries out missions for Magneto, since Magneto's the one running the show here. But again, this really just kind of unfolds with him just going against his own team, and it really makes sense here, because the thing you got to keep in mind is that Wolverine's basically the leader of this team because he knows how to counter every one of them, and that's one of the cool things. When it comes to his character in the House of M universe, it's still intact. His history is still intact. You know, his experience as a fighter is still intact. His ability to basically challenge a multitude of people and fight all of them at the same time, whether they have powers or not, is still intact. And so he can literally take on the entirety of his team and hold his own against them. The problem is that as he's making his escape from, you know, this, I guess, his former teammates, he's suddenly met by Cloak. Now, Cloak is one of these characters alongside Dagger that just kind of appears in the background of stories. They basically just kind of exist for the purpose of forwarding the plot. And I hate to say that because I'm really excited about the Cloak and Dagger TV show, but that's all they ever really were. They were just kind of plot devices. They just served the purpose of helping the story move forward. They were always background characters. They were always small time. They had some important roles here and there. For example, you know, Cloak had a really important role during Civil War when he teleported the entire conflict from the Negative Zone all the way to New York. But aside from that, he was always just a small time guy. But Cloak basically has the ability to imbue people in his, you know, in his cloak and then just teleport them to any location. And so because of this, Wolverine's teleported to Luke Cage. Now, Luke Cage runs this kind of criminal underground to a degree. And it's interesting because, again, this basically shows us that Luke Cage himself, while he was a hero for hire, he rather would have been a guy on the ground level. He rather would have been a guy that was, you know, I guess not really fighting crime so much as maintaining control of the streets. And so this seems to be more of like a power play for his character in the sense that when it came to Luke Cage, being a good guy was cool, but he rather would have been a guy that was running more of a show that had more of an influence on what happens on the street level. And that actually makes sense because that was the same thing with with Old Man Logan. In Old Man Logan, we saw where the villains took over the world. Dr. Doom had his own section of the country, and Dr. Doom turned it into a safe haven. He was like, anybody who comes here will be safe from all the other villains who were out there, from all the other bad guys. He made it a refuge. Instead of ruling it, you know, with an iron fist like Kingpin did, like the Incredible Hulk did, like Red Skull did, Dr. Doom turned his area into a refuge. And that's really seemed to be what was going on with Luke Cage. Luke Cage ran the streets with an iron fist, but if you were an innocent, if you were a bystander, if you were doing the right thing, he would make sure that no harm came to you. And so it was really kind of cool with regards to his character and what he did. But with regards to Magneto, this is when we basically switch over to Genosha. And again, Genosha was a safe haven that had existed for quite some time. The way this worked was this went all the way back to the 1990s. And Magneto was basically being reworked as a traditional villain in the 1990s because under Chris Claremont, Magneto had kind of been changed up to where he had started out as a villain, he became an anti-hero, then he became a good guy where he was leading the X-Men. But Marvel had always kind of felt, especially when it came to the Scott Lobdell era after Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, Marvel always felt that Magneto should have just been an archetypical villain. He should have been the villain of the X-Men, the one they keep facing off against. And so this led into the events like Fatal Attractions, this led into Onslaught Saga, it led into a lot of these really, really cool stories. But Magneto had basically threatened to wage war against the Earth, and the governments of the world gave him Genosha, an island unto himself where mutants could be safe from the persecution of humans. Eventually, this led into Grant Morrison's new X-Men in 2001 with the first story arc, E is for Extinction, which saw this weird persona, this weird aspect of Xavier's sister, something strange like that. Basically, a chick named Cassandra Nova taking control of Sentinels and wiping out 16 million mutants in Genosha. And so after that, after the events of E is for Extinction, Genosha was always just a wasteland. It was always just this barren place that was once the home of millions of mutants, and nobody ever really wanted to go there. It was like, you know, it was this place that Magneto ruled where there was no one to rule, but it was the place he always called his home. And so again, with this House of M, this shows Genosha restored. Not only that, Genosha is much greater than than it ever was. It's a huge, illustrious, futuristic city. It's how Magneto always envisioned it. It's how he always imagined it. And so again, this is just kind of us being told everything that's going on. Not only that, the Scarlet Witch has children. Her children have the ability to control reality. And so her kids are wildly powerful in terms of their capabilities. But this is when Bendis starts to introduce a plot device, and it's what he always does. In House of M, it's a girl named Layla Miller. Layla Miller is presented to Wolverine by Luke Cage, and the reason why is because Wolverine says, this isn't how things are supposed to be. This reality has been screwed up. This reality has been distorted. Now, Layla Miller, the reason why we say she's a plot device is because her powers are never explained. Her powers, there's no real explanation in terms of what it is that she can do. It's just, she knows how universes work. She's like, I just know how things work. I just know how things are supposed to be. There's no explanation to exactly what her powers are. She's just there, and she's just like, I know that things have been screwed up. I know that things have been distorted. That's it. That's basically Bendis saying, here's a character that's going to get us out of House of M. Now, from here, it's a matter of going through and waking up people, and that's what Layla Miller had been doing. Layla Miller had been going from person to person, initially starting out with Luke Cage, going to Cloak, going to, these various individuals, and waking them up to the way that things were supposed to be. And the first person they go see is Emma Frost. Of course, again, Wolverine's basically kind of guiding them here because he remembers all these different members of the X-Men and who it is that's the most prominent, who it is that's the most powerful, and who it is that would likely be on their side. Because the last thing they want to do is wake up somebody like Juggernaut who's going to turn around and just start attacking them all. So that's something they don't want to do here. It'd be funny, but it's something that they don't want to do. So waking up Emma Frost, this is when we basically find out that when Scarlet Witch had warped reality, that she had done it using the mind of Charles Xavier. That's why he's not here. Of course, Charles Xavier is also basically dead. Of course, we find that out, and we'll find that out in the next video, but it's something that I think is well known with this story being 12 years old or something like that. But the idea is that she had basically seized the mind of Charles Xavier. She had used his mind to read the minds of everybody in the world. And what she did is she altered the House of M, or she altered the universe to give everyone in the world their heart's desires. Now, it wasn't surface thoughts. It wasn't like they were walking down the street and they were just thinking at the time she happened to read their minds, man, I really wish I was the most popular superhero. It wasn't like that. It was her basically reading the core of who they are, the most fundamental part of who they are and what they're about, what it is that they want the most in their heart and soul, and gave them that. And so even if they didn't know what they really wanted, the Scarlet Witch did, and she used the mind of Xavier, and then she altered reality in order to achieve that. And so this is when Emma Frost basically lashes out. This is her saying, this entire place, the reason why Magneto is running the show here is because Magneto always wanted to run the show, that he always wanted to be the one in charge. He always wanted mutants to be at the top and humanity to be subservient to mutants. In return, Magneto's, I guess monarchy is called the House of Magnus. That's why it's called the House of M. It's the House of Magnus. It's the House of Magneto. He's the most powerful being in the world. He's the one that runs the show. And so in response to this, Emma Frost basically says, we have to go find Magneto and we're going to kill him. Because if all this happened, then it had to have been because of Magneto. It had to have been because he basically got his daughter to do it. He told Scarlet Witch, alter reality, change things to this perfect world, and then everybody will be happy. Everything will be okay. Okay, so continuing with House of M,